At the end of time, a moment will come when just one man remains. Then the moment will pass. Man will be gone. There will be nothing to show that we were ever here but podcasts.
Why is he doing, as far as I can tell, a South African accent?
I don't know.
Because I'm pretty sure that's the accent he's selected.
I think so too. I had forgotten the accent.
Yeah.
Because this was, when I saw this movie, Mark Strong was not a guy on my radar yet.
No, he wasn't on your old radar?
No, and the times I rewatched it, I was like, oh, Mark
radar.
Strong, that guy is starting to pop up. We'll talk about all of this. I don't think I'd seen this movie in a decade.
What?
It has been 15 years since this movie came out, right?
It's fucked up.
I probably watched it 5 or 6 times within those first 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then just hadn't seen it in a decade.
Yeah.
And obviously, Mark Strong became like omnipresent for a couple of years.
He became
in
a
that decade
real
since.
rent-a-villain.
Yes.
I don't say that negatively. The man does good work. He's a good actor, but he played a lot of villains very quickly. Yeah. Hard men,
Yes.
as the Brits would say.
Right. So I don't think I had a
Hardman?
sense. Hardman.
Hard man.
You an odd man, hard man.
You an Ardman? Ardman Studios?
It's like, a guy where you're like, I probably shouldn't, like, fuck with this guy at the bar. You know what I mean? Like, you just sort of see someone and you're like, if I, like, cut in front of this guy,
He'll
like,
headbutt
like, he would have no compunction about just, like, curb stomping
It's not
me.
like this is always the case, but it's funny when you watch interviews with real Mark Strong. He is like such a lovely, quiet, soft-spoken man.
Unsurprisingly, lovely actor man, like, thoughtful, right?
But also, when, like, it's not like he looks intense and then has this lovely energy about him, where it's like some of these guys, you're like, surprisingly, he's very low key. When you watch interviews with him talking, you're like, how could you ever cast this guy as a villain? And it does feel like there's some switch he flips.
Right.
And then becomes an odd man. What were you going to say, Ben? You look like you were burning to make a point about the
Brits
odd man.
really own headbutts.
Oh.
And I know it's because of soccer.
Yes.
Football.
Perfectly pronounced.
Well done.
But they really, to me, I'm like, that's a move that like Brits own.
Well, and Mark Strong
100%.
has a head that looks designed for headbutt. That's the
he
other weird
does.
thing.
He's got a bullet-shaped head. A Glasgow kiss. Have you ever heard that expression?
No.
That's a headbutt.
To the
usually
nose?
to the nose.
Yeah.
Yeah, to try and get you to bleed.
Wow.
Classic football hooligan
Hooliganism.
sort of thing. Yeah.
And do you know what a Glasgow French kiss is?
No.
Headbutt to the nose and then they lick you. This is Blank Check with Griffin and David. I'm Griffin.
I'm David.
It's a podcast about filmographies, directors who are experience massive success early on in their careers. And are given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want, and sometimes those checks clear, and sometimes they bounce right into the sun, baby.
See, I thought you were going to say spit into their mouth instead
Why?
of lick.
Oh. French kiss, I think more the tongue than the spit.
Yeah. Right.
The spit's already happening in any version of the kiss, unless
That's
you're doing fucking warheads.
Sure.
Pucker, sour face. Look, I'll talk about this in a second, but I'll get into this. Don't worry, a whole sidebar coming. It's a miniseries on the films of Danny Boyle.
Right.
It is called Train Spodcasting.
Trains podcasting.
And today we are talking about one of our great, promised, outstanding dream board episodes from the very beginning of this show. Someone was trying to pin the first time we said we should do a Sunshine episode.
Probably really early.
It was, I believe, episode 1 of Attack of the Podcast.
Okay, so like
Because we were
episode
doing
11 or whatever.
when we were in the Star Wars days, the original version of the show where we just talked about the Star Wars prequels. The first episode of each miniseries would just be the opening 5 minutes of the movie. And the opening 5 minutes of Attack of the Clones is Rose Byrne dying.
Oh, yeah, she's one of the fake Padmes.
Fake Padme.
And then she's like, I'm so sorry. She has like a little monologue.
Someone found the clip, and we were both like, not a great performance. And we were like, which is bizarre because she's become one of the best actors we have right now.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about Rose Byrne performances we liked. We both went like Sunshine, and we were like, that movie's a fucking masterpiece. We should do an episode on Sunshine. We had just done Judging the Judge. So we had established this model of like, we do Star Wars movies, and then we did a
so
weird
we were like,
one-off.
we'll do a Sunshine.
Right. This was the point where we were like,
Why
I don't
did
know,
we
maybe
do
we
the
occasionally
Judge?
do like We thought we were going to do like a one-off Hulk episode, a one-off Sunshine episode. We had these couple of like one-offs we wanted to do before we landed on the miniseries thing, the director thing. So this has been talked about since 2015.
And now we're doing
It's an 8-year promise.
Sunshine. It's one reason we're doing Danny Boyle, obviously.
Huge reason.
You haven't seen this movie in 10 years, though?
Isn't that wild? And I watched it so many times. Like, I probably watched it 3 or 4 times in 2007. And then I kept watching it like once a year. And I truly think it had maybe been a decade since I saw it. Maybe a little less, but it had been a while.
Sunshine, a 2007 film. Ben!
Yes.
Had you seen this movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I was wondering.
Someone recommended it to me. Or you know what? Actually, fuck.
Maybe Griffin and David?
Who was it? It was you two
Yeah,
fuckers.
right.
It's
What do you
probably
mean?
us.
Someone.
And I finally came across it and just was like, all right, I'm going to put this on.
Yeah.
And it was like a fantastic space movie.
Yes.
Mhm.
I love a space mystery.
That's-
It's one of my favorite kinds of
Absolutely.
space genres.
Yeah.
It's a space mystery.
Yeah. I mean, you know, an interesting thing about this movie is I think it's straddling a couple different genres at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's doing them pretty seamlessly. Obviously, the controversial element of this movie is whether the last 30 minutes work for you or not. And a lot of people, it's a breaking point. But we will get into this at length. Here's what I want to say.
I have nothing to say to those people.
This episode, an 8-year promise to our listeners, to ourselves, to
Right.
finally talk Sunshine, right?
Yeah.
There is an unfortunate runner on this show, Blank Check with Griffin and David.
What?
The biggest episodes, the one I'm most excited for. I'm fucking sick.
Oh, you're sick. Okay, sure. Yeah.
Here's my state right now.
Okay.
I have a sinus infection,
Mm.
which makes me feel like I'm inside of the sunsuit from this movie. I feel like completely like enclosed in that like gold suit with the tiny slit where I can like barely breathe. And then also I went to the dermatologist yesterday to get stuff removed and I'm like blistering all over. So I feel like fucking Pinbacker. I feel like my skin is like molting and I'm in the suit.
Yeah, gross.
All this to say, Sunshine, a masterpiece from 2007 by Danny Boyle.
Edward Yang only 3 points ahead of David Lean right now. First
Interesting.
close race
Interesting.
just launched.
Very
Just telling you
interesting.
that. Sunshine, a great film by Danny Boyle.
Mhm.
One of my favorites.
It feels...
Seen it a dozen times, if not more.
Yeah.
It feels what?
No, I was going to say, in a certain way, this is one of his biggest blank checks, and it's weird that it's coming off of an unsuccessful movie. But I guess the 28 Days Later effect was just huge.
Yeah. Millions doesn't even... that people didn't even know that existed.
No, and him going to Fox Searchlight and being like, I want to work with the same guy and do another elevated genre movie like 28 Days Later, I think was just a strong pitch to them.
What same guy?
Cillian Murphy.
Alex Garland and Cillian Murphy.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
both
Alex
of them.
Garland. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Right. He's like, same screenwriter, same lead actor.
Right.
What I did for 28 Days Later
Well-
for the zombie movie, can I do something for the space movie?
Well,
Well,
I guess we could talk about how this movie came together.
yeah,
if we're
because it's
gonna-
interesting.
Danny Boyle was attached to make a film called 3,000 Degrees for
Mm.
Warner Brothers.
That's hot.
Super
about
hot.
a real life 1999 Massachusetts fire that had killed 6 firefighters.
So he's in a hot place. He's in a hot mindset in
That's
terms of his
true.
next film.
It's based obviously on like a nonfiction book. It sort of sounds like a
It's based on a fire.
it's based on a real
true
fire, but it sort of sounds like The Perfect Storm or whatever. It's like
Sure.
there's a nonfiction book about this like unusual disaster.
Mhm.
I think it was going to be like Ed Harris, Woody Harrelson. You know, it was going to be this cast of kind of like gritty
Chrome
guys, gritty chrome domes. And it ran into like protests from the real life surviving family members and stuff.
Mhm.
And I guess Warner Brothers just kind of backed off. You know, they were like, all right, forget it. One thing he says though is, you know, it's an extraordinary true story. I tried to cast this actor for the main part and I went to meet him. He said, I don't want to play it. And I said, why not? Because it was a really good part. And he
Mhm.
was like, well, the guy dies. And the guy, this actor who he won't name,
Uh-huh.
I'd love to know who it is, said, yeah, but you know, no one remembers anyone who dies in films. And Danny Boyle is just like, Okay. Anyway, that's just a little fact.
Yeah, I'm like, how many people have
I don't
won
think that's
Oscars
true.
for dying on screen?
Right. Danny Boyle is trying to be like, maybe he had a point, and I'm like, I don't think he had a point, Danny. I think that's
No,
that's
I
the
don't
kind of thing
either.
someone says where you're supposed to be like, oh, interesting, but it's not actually real.
It's always funny when you hear those stories about actors who turn down parts, and they're just like, audiences always hate a character who does this. You can never play something like
there's
this.
like fucking a million movies, man.
Right.
There's definitely examples of that not being true.
Right, and I'm also just like,
Weirdo.
that sounds like a you problem.
Also, yeah,
You can say, I don't know how to play this. I don't think I can make this character
Sure.
work. But when they're like, audiences always hate anyone who dies.
right, or forget about them. Like,
Yeah.
Anyway. Obviously, the other space movie, Danny Boyle, I think we mentioned this on an early episode, is considered making was Alien Resurrection.
Yes.
That he was attached to that, and then he dropped out. It was earlier in his career, and he was like, I'm not ready to do like a big CG movie. But it's sort of interesting to think about that.
Uh-huh. He does, obviously, Alien Love Triangle, which we talked about.
But that's-
His unreleased short film.
small
That's
scale.
small scale sci-fi comedy.
Alex Garland
Mhm.
obviously had worked with him on 28 Days Later.
Mhm.
And he was like, I have this idea for a Mission to the Sun movie. We'll
Mhm.
do like a classic meditative sci-fi movie like 2001 or Solaris or whatever. But like nobody ever thinks of the sun. We're
Yes.
always going that away. What about that away? Towards it. And they both in interviews, both Garland and Boyle keep talking about it like a mountaineering movie, which I kind of like that idea
Interesting.
of like trying to climb something that gets harder and harder the closer and closer you
Yeah.
get to the top.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's what I like about the structure of this movie.
Mhm.
I also read some quote from them where they were saying, like, it was exciting to us to have an apocalyptic threat that was basically the opposite of our environmental concerns.
Sure, right. Rather than global warming, global chilly.
Right. Like, if you're making a sci-fi movie about the thing that probably will eventually kill us all,
Too much of a bummer.
right. And
It
instead
would be
it's like,
funny though if that was what it was about,
yes,
and they had to go to the sun and like throw a big bucket of water on it.
cool,
That would be
Too
cool.
hot.
cool it down.
Cool it down. They just get a big hose and they're like, "Will you cool down, you crazy old sun?"
I just think it's such a good like starting point choice for this movie. That it's a thing where you're like, that sounds like a really scary threat. I could see how that would make it difficult for us to live, but it's not a thing that we're actually worried about right now.
No, it's not a real thing, but it
Yes.
is a good concept. Our
Yes.
sun is dying.
Yes.
Everyone knows that suns eventually kind of die out.
Mhm.
Sure, our sun is about 4.5 billion years from doing that, but whatever. What if it
Yeah.
was just doing that?
Mhm.
What? And then
Early retirement.
then the idea of like, well, how would we fix that? Like, well, we'd shoot a giant bomb into it to kind of like, you know,
Yeah, well, it's like when the Wi-Fi
yeah,
is
it's like hitting
working,
the side of the TV.
you got to unplug it and plug it back in.
I don't know if I'm getting ahead in the dossier here, but like the other element of this movie that finally crystallized for me here, and maybe I'm an idiot and you've always picked up on this, but I was reading some interview with Cillian Murphy where he was talking about the prep work he did with Danny Boyle.
Mm-hmm.
And Danny Boyle was like, watch Wages of Fear.
Yes, right. Huge, great
In
idea.
terms of actors having to sell tension and stakes and intensity and trying to solve a problem. And I'm like, oh, right, that's the genius of this movie is he's basically combining Alien with Wages of Fear. Wages of Fear, Ben, if you haven't seen it,
Yeah.
a incredible French film by Clouzot that was remade as Sorcerer,
Mhm.
the great William Friedkin, Roy Scheider movie that you would love. But both movies are about tough men, hard men, if you will,
Oh, man.
who have to transport
Oh, man.
like a truck of nitroglycerin across the jungle, like awful terrain. And so the whole thing is just these guys, like these tough guys who are constantly like at each other's throats, have this incredibly sensitive payload that they're trying to get
Can't
from
let
one
it
into
blow
the
up.
other. Can't let it blow up.
Right.
But that sort of thing of like,
Careful.
we got this bomb. We have to get it to this place.
Right. Garland meets Danny Boyle at a pub on
Mhm.
Tottenham Court Road.
Cool.
Gives him a 90-page script. Boyle says the original script was more small scale. At the end of the film, there were two guys left playing chess as they were going into the sun.
Mm.
So it was kind of a like, you know, probably more thinky movie.
Mhm.
And Boyle is like, I want this to, you know, be more gargantuan, whatever. Like, I want to keep the psychological element, right?
Mhm.
But you know, he boils it up. I mean, it's a Danny Boyle
but
movie.
he wants to make it function as a genre movie.
And yes, and I think Alex Garland's script did have the function that the movie has, the slasher thing of like every 20 minutes someone dies, or even 10 minutes, in some new and inventive way. But the way Boyle puts it is, I'm not like Tim Burton or Luc Besson, who can do flamboyant sci-fi. I like realism, and then I try to disfigure it. This was science possible, not science impossible. He takes the script to Brian Cox, not, fuck off, not that guy, because he would have said, fuck
Michael
off.
Caine's a piece of shit.
I'm not doing that, fuck off. The son.
Everyone's a bad actor but me. Fuck off.
Why does the ship have an actor? Like he's just there and playing himself. NASA decided there to be an actor on board.
Fuck you.
Not Brian Cox, the actor, the great actor. Don't come for me, but Brian Cox, the kind of like cool, hip physicist who used to be in a band. Like, do you know Brian Cox?
I do.
This guy, he's very cool.
I'm sorry. I went off thinking about Brian Cox coming at you.
Come here, Sims. I can't do him.
He likes kissing too much. Fuck off.
I wonder how he feels about kissing. I read his book. I mean, he definitely did some
Kissing's
kissing.
for losers. Fuck off.
So wait, the other Brian Cox
Takes it
what
to the
band
real,
was
the
he in?
physicist Brian Cox. What band was he in? It was wasn't he in D-Ream? Like he was in like 90s. Oh God, it keeps giving me the actor. No, come on, the physicist.
Fuck off.
Google's telling you to fuck off.
Yeah, he was in D-Ream, which you probably don't know about them, but they're a British band. Things can only get better. Big
No.
80s, early 90s, kind of like synthy pop rock.
I just like that Danny Boyle found the most Danny Boyle physicist possible.
Yeah. I mean, this guy, he's like,
wow.
look,
So it's like
Dream, but D:*Ream. Best known because Tony Blair used their song as his like campaign song in Britain. Things can only get better. You understand?
I get it. I
Yeah.
get it. You know what I say to that?
What?
Fuck off.
Fuck off. He's one of those Brian Cox. It's just, those scientists who break through because they can explain these very heady concepts to you in a somewhat pedestrian way. They're
can
not
work
like
as a-
weird
right.
if you sit them in front of a
TV personality.
TV camera.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But I'm not saying he's stupid. I mean, he's clearly smart.
No.
You're
You're Bill Nye's. I know it's not a perfect analogy.
No,
but
sure,
this
but
thing
you're
of like
Neil deGrasse
the guy's a
Tyson,
broadcaster, right?
Like,
Yeah.
These guys who kind of like break through in
Yes.
some funny way.
Carl Sagan. Yes.
Well, sure, he's special. He's the king.
Beaker.
Beaker.
Well, Honeydew's the one explaining.
That's true. Beaker doesn't really talk. I couldn't think of the other one's
Yeah.
name.
But Dr. Bunsen Honeydew. So some respect. A top tier Muppet.
The script went through many revisions. And Boyle was sort of like the whole time trying to be like, let's just try to keep the sets contained. Like he had this sort of budget. He's like, I don't want the beach again.
Yeah.
I don't want some kind of like production that spirals out of control. I do want something manageable in terms of setting.
This movie cost $40 million in 2005 when they film it. So it would be, 50 some odd million today.
Sure.
But it is in this weird, like, to make this movie for $40 million is a shoestring budget.
100%.
It's even
incredible
though
how
this
good
budget
movie
is
looks.
close to the beach, obviously, so much of that budget was DiCaprio, and the rest of the movie
I'm like getting shit to this location.
got inflated. Right. This
Well,
is an incredible use of money, but it also made this film exist in a weird in-between space from the get-go.
100%.
Because you hear all these stories, I mean, they're all here in the dossier about him. Everyone questioning, is this a Fox movie or is this a Fox Searchlight movie?
Yeah.
Right? And they were like, it's either like far and away the biggest Fox Searchlight movie we've made, or it's like the smallest Fox release. And it was straddling this line of him wanting to do like psychologically grounded sci-fi, but still have it function as a slasher and as a thriller and all of this, where I think this movie was just like stuck between two poles for a very long time.
Well, let me tell you. I mean, I know what their biggest mistake was. They shouldn't have called it Sunshine. It's a bad title. I'm sorry. It's not a
it's
like
not a sellable title.
Not a sellable title. Does not sound like an action movie.
No, it doesn't.
Doesn't sound like a space movie. Doesn't sound like a movie with like, high octane sunshine.
No. We love the title.
I don't mind the title.
I love it then. I'll speak for
I
myself.
like the title,
but I agree with you. I think it's hard to
I don't know what you're supposed to call it.
There was that fucking also that this had Oscar buzz movie, Sunshine, with Ray Fiennes.
There was a big Oscar-buzzed Sunshine movie 8 years prior.
Right. And like, we're the only fuckers who even remember that thing existing. But it does feel like that's the kind of movie you think would be called Sunshine.
I agree. And again, I don't know what the movie should be called, but I'm just saying.
The Icarus II or whatever.
Well,
Project Icarus. Mission to...
See, all these kind of do sound bad.
They're generic titles. That's the problem.
Look, he used storyboards pretty much for the first time. Boyle doesn't like storyboarding, but for this one, he was like, well, it's completely essential.
Yeah. That's the way you make this movie on a budget, is you figure out every single thing perfectly years in advance.
20th Century Fox is the first person they reach out to because they had worked on various Boyle movies, but they were wary because of the disaster that Solaris had been for them.
Yes.
The Steven Soderbergh masterpiece.
Right.
That was a hugely expensive, cost twice as much as this movie and bombed.
Right. So they're like, the second someone comes in with any heady ideas in space.
Yeah, exactly.
We're scared.
So they start getting some British funding, lottery funding, ingenious film partners, which is some kind of, whatever, European investor. And then Fox Searchlight, as you say, brings in the rest. They did want to change the title. They didn't say. They just thought the title sounded like the title of a musical. But they did basically say, because we're Fox Searchlight and we're not mean old Fox, you're allowed to have whatever cast you want. You can shoot it in London.
Yeah.
And you can have total creative control.
The one thing I read was that...
And the cast of this movie is insane, but at the time, they are not names. No. Michelle Yeoh is probably the biggest name in this cast.
Correct. She's the biggest name in this cast, and this is arguably in a slight lull in her career.
She's just always been an actor who in Hollywood just does movies.
Yeah.
She doesn't open movies.
No, it's a little taken for granted.
She's an ensemble player, or in a big way, but not in a she's into Mummy 3. She's not on the fucking poster.
No, but she is the biggest star in this movie.
Yeah.
And
almost by default, but yeah.
And then it's a lot of people that they're trying to launch.
I guess Chris Evans had already done Fantastic Four. So maybe he's sort of similar.
We're going to do a whole Evans thing. But I feel like that was one of those things where, this comes out the same year as the second Fantastic Four movie. I think that's a total example of this guy was in a big hit and he was one of the stars and he was the performance that everyone liked in relative to the rest of that cast. True. Right? He's the one who came closest to
He's got some life in those movies, yeah.
Yeah. But he was not automatically made a star by that. He's the kind of name where a studio calms down a little bit because you're giving us a name of a handsome guy who was in a film that was a hit, but no one thinks he's drawing an audience at this point. He's just kind of a little bit of a safety net. And then Cillian Murphy, you're like, okay, he was the villain in Batman.
Yeah.
And 28 Days Later.
We'll talk about
all these guys. The one thing I saw I keep saying the one thing I saw many things. I have read many things about this movie.
Okay.
Fox Searchlight's big ask was, you can put together this cast that is very international with a lot of people who are not yet bankable stars. Please have as many of them speak with American accents as possible. That was apparently their one demand.
Okay.
Yeah.
They
just were so worried about people can take a multinational cast, but they all need to sound American.
Now, this is the last Danny Boyle, Alex Garland collaboration,
which is wild. It feels like they kept working together.
No, Garland starts doing his own
thing
pretty
off
much after this. Yeah. They basically agreed on everything. Sort of unlike 28 Days Later, he says, basically, they had the same inspirations, and they respect each other very much. They do speak highly of each other, but Garland does kind of complain in this interview. I've interviewed him. He's a grumpy guts, and I love him.
Hey, grumpy guts. We stand at grumpy guts.
What he says here, which is Danny has a terrific instinct towards viscerality and compulsion. If you're making 28 Days Later, then you're in perfect sync. Sunshine, in my mind, was closer to Ex Machina, tonally more reflective. Sometimes viscerality and reflection are fighting for space on that movie. It's a balance issue. But Garland is still mostly like, but Danny is a good director and he's making good choices. Like but he clearly is like, I envisioned a more meditative film than this.
I think the emotionality is key to this film.
I agree.
And
I just think you should get over it.
I like Alex Garland's movies.
Me too.
As a director, and I like his whole vibe as a director. But this is a movie that needs a bit of the earnest lifeblood.
Yeah, look, I love Alex
what
Garland's
people mean
movies.
to each other, sort of Danny Boyle energy.
Yeah, this movie has energy, and I love Alex Garland's movies, but
also feeling.
Ex Machina is like a chamber piece. That works totally.
Yes.
Like that's
yeah.
I like Annihilation a lot.
Yes.
And I like the ending of it.
Yeah, Men is the least successful of them, obviously, but there's stuff.
But
in that
Annihilation, like, there are directors who might have come in there and been like, "This needs a third act.
Yeah,
this can't actually just be this quiet the whole time."
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that would have been the right call, but I can anyway.
Yeah.
Boyle and Garland both think the third act of this movie could have been executed better. Now, again, I think they just need to get over it.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those like
they should just shut up. I think they should shut up.
Hey, David, be respectful. They made a movie that we love. Show a little respect. It circulates a lot on the internet, but there was, I don't know, 2009, 2010, Tarantino did a series of introductions for some British film channel. He was like curating a series of his favorite movies of the last decade.
Yeah.
And he did video introductions for all of them.
Yeah.
And I feel like he kind of crystallized the complaint of this movie, where he's like, the first 2/3 of this movie, I think, are maybe the best film of the decade. And the last third of this movie is so apocalyptic. It makes me furious. I think it's like a disaster. I have rarely seen a movie self-sabotage itself this hard. But the first 2/3 are so good. It's still, in spite of that, makes my 10.
Where is this last third? What's the
It is the
point?
moment you find out, basically, that Pinbacker is still alive and that he is on the ship.
Okay.
That is when people flip on this movie.
As I
when
remember,
it starts to feel a little supernatural, heightened.
I remember talking to a
slasher.
friend,
Yeah.
normie friend of mine, Josh. Shout out, Josh.
Shout out, Josh.
Around the time this movie came
There's
out,
nothing wrong with being normal.
I've known him for most of my life, 20 years.
I agree, Ben, but I also don't believe that you think that.
Look,
You
I was
of
talking to my
all
friend
people.
Josh, and I was like, I love Sunshine. And he was like, oh, yeah, I like that. I didn't like the last act. And I was like, yeah, I kind of stick up for the last act. And he's like, really? Like, when it's just like this guy being like, I am God.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, when you put it that way, like, yeah, sure. Kind of body slam.
Do an impression, it's silly. Yeah. I mean, look, I love it unabashedly, and I think it's perfect, and I wouldn't want this movie any other way. On this rewatch, it was the first time where I could even, almost as an intellectual exercise, understand what people don't like about it. I think they're dumb, and I think they should shut the fuck up, as you said. But every other time I watch this...
They're going to come for you now.
Yeah, well, great. Come at me.
Okay,
I don't like the
I don't
way
want
he
to get
said that.
too caught up on this. This is so nitpicky, but if you're going to the sun, I don't see them once put on sunscreen.
What?
Not once.
This is part of the movie. They're all fucking obsessed with this thing. They're all like obsessed with towing this line and being like, how much sun can I give me? 3.1%.
That's just the one guy. Look, back to the dossier.
Pinbacker, they're all starting to.
Pinbacker could stand to moisturize. There's no
Pinbacker-
question about that.
Pinbacker could use some cocoa butter.
Yeah.
Big time.
Alien and 2001, obvious two influences if you're going to make a space movie, pretty much anybody.
Yep.
But what's one thing that Boyle likes about those movies? Ensemble films
Yes.
with not big stars.
Right. And with Alien in
Alien
particular,
especially.
the feeling of like this being a workplace.
Workplace, you've
Yeah.
got this kind of cast of character actors and up and comers. And, you really try and make it feel very level playing field.
Yeah.
Because, of course, the magic of seeing Alien the first time, we don't get to have this magic because we know who Sigourney
Yes.
Weaver is, but is that you really don't know who the final person is going to be.
No. Now,
It really feels like it could be anyone.
here's what's wild about this film. Almost everyone in it has gotten so much more famous since then. That even still watching it today, you're like, I don't know who makes it, because it's not like now retroactively
Right.
I understand that one of these people popped
No.
and the others didn't. Troy Garrity is, I would argue, unfairly, right? Like we have not done him right as a culture.
You think so?
I like him a lot.
What do you like him in?
Barbershop, he's incredible in.
And
Bandits,
Okay.
He's incredibly good in Bandits.
Is he?
Yes.
I don't remember him in Bandits.
That was his break.
Look, I remember when Troy Garrity was a big deal.
Yes.
I remember those 2 years.
It's these 3 movies. It's Sunshine, The Two Barbershops,
No,
and
you're forgetting Soldier's Girl. That was his big thing.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Which he won a Golden Globe for, I believe, or he's nominated.
He's the communications officer.
Yes.
Okay.
And obviously, he's Jane Fonda's son, so he's a Nippo baby.
And his father is Tom Hayden of the Chicago 7.
His father is not Tom Hayden. It's Eddie Redmayne in the Chicago 7.
I'm sorry. His father's Eddie Redmayne.
Wait, how does that work?
What do you mean? No, I'm joking. Did you see the Chicago 7? All right, okay.
Eddie Redmayne became that part so thoroughly
that
that
he's
in
actually
fact,
Troy Garrity's
they checked
dad.
his DNA and they were like, somehow Eddie Redmayne came in your mom.
Commitment. I've heard of method.
Yeah.
It was
but
that
the weirdest
barbershop Soldier's
parents
Girl.
for that guy to have.
But it was like Barbershop Soldier's Girl. He's a good-looking guy. Everyone was like, well, and he's Hollywood royalty. This must be a new star. He works. He's working to this day.
He did like 6 seasons of Ballers. I was looking.
He was on Ballers.
Where did he go? And it was like, oh, he was on all of Ballers.
Oh yeah, Ballers, a show that had 6 seasons.
He was kind of the Ari Gold of Ballers. He's like an agent.
Downing them.
He's like the big agent on that show. It's not like he doesn't work, but he certainly didn't pan out as a superstar. Pretty much everyone else in this movie is well known, or as you say, like just only got more famous.
Does Icarus work? Icarus
burned up at the end of the movie.
Yeah. That's
even
too bad.
like someone like
Burned so bright.
Yeah, exactly. That's how you go out.
Someone like Hiroyuki Sanada, who's obviously a huge star in Japan already.
Yeah.
By the time this movie came out, this is basically his second English language film after Last Samurai.
Yeah.
And then after this, he becomes a guy who's in everything.
He's a guy who'll pop in.
Right.
He's hot.
Benedict Wong, we know him, we love him. Michelle Yeoh, Cillian Murphy, Rose Byrne, Chris Evans.
They got Michelle Yeoh first.
Yes.
She was the first cast.
They wanted her to play the Sonata role originally.
He says everyone was written, every character, much like Alien, it's like no gender, no ethnicity, you know. So maybe they kind of wanted her to be the captain, but she picked Coruscant.
The quote I read was that he had her in mind as the elder statesman, the leader, and she said, "I don't think I've aged into that part yet."
Sure. Well, okay, Michelle.
In terms of intensity,
whatever.
not literal age. Yeah.
Cillian, obviously, 28 days later.
Yeah.
Rose Byrne's casting off of Troy. She's very pretty in Troy.
Yes, and then he throws her into 28 weeks after this.
That's true. Yeah. Also tired in that one. Cliff Curtis had recently done Whale Rider. He's in Training Day, sort of pops in that thing. I guess Chris Evans and Troy Garrity are a little more just kind of like, well, these are guys.
These are guys.
These are some guys you can get.
Chris Evans, certainly everyone wanted him to be.
He's cutie
that guy on paper. You're just like, well, this is an obvious leading man.
And then Benny Wong, of course, is sort of notorious for like not having an agent. He's like one of those guys. Yes. So I'm not sure how they get him.
His first movie that I saw him in, maybe not his first film, but the film I saw him in, he was in this movie called On a Clear Day You Can See Forever. That's a Peter Mullen trying to swim the English Channel
that movie.
movie.
I never saw it.
It's a cute movie, but he's in that and he's got such a distinctive look and energy that I was just like, well, I remember this Punim. And then this comes out a year or two later.
Punim.
Yeah.
He really does. They hadn't thought of Cillian initially, he says.
Okay.
They saw that character as American. But then they saw him in Batman Begins.
Yes.
And they thought he did a great job and his American accent was impeccable. And they thought, why not Cillian?
It is incredible.
And they read him.
His accent work in this movie is
it's excellent.
Unbelievable.
You know what else I have to say about him?
What?
Good looking.
It is, look, anytime him and Rose Byrne are on screen together, they're these two like angelic looking, saucer-eyed, round-faced
eyes.
They both look
huge.
So delicate and sad at all times that just have the two of them be tired sitting around a darkly lit table being like, I hope the sun doesn't die.
Chris Evans, Fantastic Four.
Yes.
The casting director said, you should see this guy. They loved him, said he can do anything. Great. They put them into space camp.
Yes. Boyle's was like, we're going to go method on this movie as much as we can. I want these performances to be so lived in terms of them feeling the weight of the passage of time, how long they've been on this mission, all being stuck together. he was like, obviously we can't send them into space, but I'm going to do everything I can to create the circumstances for this to be lived in.
And I think he kept telling them, like, watch how Brian Cox talks about things, because they're with Brian Cox, who's this young, sexy scientist. And the way Boyle talks about it's like he's so resolute. He's so like firm in his scientific thought. And that's how the actors are in this, the characters are in this movie, right? Like the way everyone talks in this movie, it's the passions get inflamed at times, but like at the end of the day, they are like diagnosticians. Like that is how they approach problems.
It is one of the things I love so much about this movie, and I'm not taking body blows to a film that we both love, David.
Okay, which film?
But there's the scene that people mock in Interstellar where Romilly takes out the paper and the pen and does the like complete illustration of how time works, right? And they're like, obviously, it makes sense within the movie. This character was not an astronaut, whatever, right? Or McConaughey's character is not a scientist, I mean.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where, like, the movie understands that it now needs to explain to the audience how the thing works.
Is. Sure, yeah.
This movie somehow threads this needle of when they are all speaking to each other, there is, like, no importance put on it. It is a workplace conversation. Even when the stakes are high, the way they speak about these things are just like, well, this is just their knowledge base. This is their job. This is what you do. This is how you, like, solve a printer jam or whatever. But yet, every concept is communicated so clearly to the audience. There's no moment where they go into scientific mumbo jumbo and you start zoning out.
No, I don't think there's not really
I think this movie is incredible in its sort of efficiency at communicating complicated concepts without hand-holding them for the audience, and that you just know the entire time what their mission is, what they need to do, how they need to do it, how it needs to work. Like, it's almost set up like a heist movie.
Yeah, sure.
Even in terms of just setting up the different rooms of the ship and what everyone's function is, where it's just like all of this, you understand the entire ecosystem of this film, what could go wrong, how it goes wrong, what the possible solutions are, what your endpoint is. And I read, like, Cox in particular was like, Cillian Murphy nailed it. This is exactly how physicists talk.
Yeah, he says that physicists to this day speak highly of that performance.
They're like, he got it right. There's something about how natural it is. He doesn't put too much importance on it, but you also believe that he actually knows what he's saying.
And he's hot. Brian Cox is kind of hot. Cillian's hot.
Cillian in this character, Kappa, also is kind of this weird anti-Ripley.
Sure. I would say Chris Evans is kind of the Ripley in this movie.
This is my point.
That everything he says is correct.
Yes.
And they don't listen to him.
Right. But the whole thing of, like, Alien, right? Is, okay, here's Tom Skerritt. He's the biggest star. He's the one acting most like a movie hero.
Sure.
Who's Ripley? She's sort of the quiet.
She's the warrant officer, of course.
Steely, more sensitive one in the corner, right? And then over the course of the movie, she slowly reveals herself to be the protagonist.
Right.
But, like, part of the arc, and obviously the arc of Ripley across the 4 movies, is like, who would have pegged this character to become the badass? From the starting point of Alien, you don't think she's going to become an action hero, right? And Kappa is almost resolutely refusing to be an action hero the entire movie. He is the guy placed at the center of the story who remains the intellectual, emotionally sensitive. I think it's so key that his introduction in this movie is him doing the message to his family, and that he's so corny, you know, in a sweet way. But it's like,
awkward.
You know, and Chris Evans' his introduction in the film is beating the shit out of Cillian Murphy. They're like feuding brothers. And Chris Evans is like, I should be the star of this film. His character is like, I'm right about everything.
He's right.
I have the movie star charisma. I have the swagger. I walk in.
Sure.
And Kappa just sits there the whole time, and everyone has to keep pointing at him and being like, but at the end of the day, he is the only one of us who is truly indispensable.
Well, but even Chris Evans does that. He has that moment.
Yes.
He's like, well, he's the one we actually...
That's what I like. For all their frustrations with him, they're like, at the end of the day, he's the only person we can't lose. Yeah. And by default, he has to be the center of this movie.
He can work the bomb.
The payload. David.
Yep.
David.
What?
Mubi. What more needs to be said?
Mubi. You ain't got no alibi. It's Mubi.
Look, Mubi, can we pick favorites? We love them.
We
makes us
love
happy.
Mubi.
Because here's the thing. I don't know, maybe you've listened to the show before. We like movies. You and I.
We like movies.
It's the reason this show exists. We like talking
about
about
the
them.
Premise of the show. That's true.
Right. The promise of the premise. We talk about movies, and what Mubi does is hand curate a beautiful film festival at your fingertips, exciting new films for you to discover. So it makes us so happy and excited when we have a Mubi ad, because what do we get to do? We get to pull up the old Mubi homepage and look for some new movies that we can recommend to our listeners.
The film of the day right now is Obsession. Brian De Palma's
Yes.
film Obsession, which I'm a huge fan of. You know how Brian De Palma basically just remade every single Hitchcock movie at one point or another. This one is Vertigo.
Sure.
But it's Cliff Robertson,
pitch.
Genevieve Bujold. Love that film. Fun little double-crossy, double-ganger movie.
Mm-hmm.
You ever see Kedi?
The cat film.
The
Yes, I
cute
did.
Turkish
Yes.
cat documentary?
Yes. The cats run the city. Modern romance Albert Brooks film, which is often very hard to watch.
It can be hard to watch. It's up there.
It's up there. It's up there right now. What else am I seeing up here?
Paul Schrader's Hardcore. Great George C. Scott.
You know the meme.
Oh
Now
my
see
God,
the
that's
movie.
my daughter. Exactly.
Yes.
It's a good movie.
Yes.
It's flawed, but it's good.
They got some Nina Menkes movies. Have you ever seen any of
They
Nina Menkes'
sure do.
film?
It's a blind spot. But Queen of Diamonds I'm seeing up here. That I would love to watch.
Phantom of Love is the one that I've seen. Yes.
Yeah, I've been checking out all kinds of great stuff on Mubi. They, of course, have The Kingdom Exodus, the third season of Lars von Trier's iconic Kingdom television series set in a crazy haunted hospital.
And the exclusive place to see the remastered versions of the first two series.
Exactly. And, of course, it's also the exclusive place to see Decision to Leave, Park Chan-wook's captivating romantic thriller/detective drama. Which is a lot of fun.
I'm just looking through so many directors who are either coming up on our March Madness bracket or have just been competing in March Madness who are included here. You got Faces Places,
Classic.
the Agnes Varda film. You have early short films from Charlotte Wells, breakout director of After Sun.
Absolutely. Look, you can try Mubi free for 30 days at Mubi.com/check. That's MUBI.com/check for a whole month of great cinema for free.
We love it. Mubi.
They did the plane, the vomit comet. They did the deep sea diving.
You know
do
about
all
the
this-
vomit comet, right, Ben?
They take you up in a plane that goes like this,
Oh,
so you can
yeah.
experience weightlessness.
Yeah.
That's how they do all
Um,
the like zero gravity stuff in Apollo 13.
Much like
Right.
Train Spotting, he had them all live together for 2 weeks so they could get to know each other. Or Shallow Grave. I think it's Shallow
Yes.
Grave where he did that. He wanted them to have the camaraderie, but also kind of the weird sense of like boredom that
Yeah.
they've been like sort of stuck living in a
The
boring
fucking
flat for
weariness
2
of
years.
this movie.
Weariness is so
No
clever.
one wearing makeup.
Eating Dippin' Dots. Right. He had him do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had him. Yeah, they had to eat Dippin' Dots. Gross.
It's the future.
They didn't shoot it at Pinewood,
Mhm.
which is sort of one of London's big studios. They filmed it somewhere smaller. I don't know
Okay,
where.
but in London.
In the UK, and whatever. It's called Three Mills Studios. Where is
Okay.
that? Let's look it up. Which apparently is like a ridiculous place. It's in Stratford. Sure, it's East London. Ridiculous place to make a big sci-fi movie because I think it's quite small. But he wanted, let's have the crew as small as possible. Let's have everything as tiny as possible, so we stretch every dollar. They have this production design approach that I think is very clever, that is very real world. Everything in this movie basically looks like something we would have now, maybe just a little zhuzhed up, right?
Mhm.
His Danny Boyle's argument is like, if you went 50 years ago in London, you'd see red buses. They don't look the same as our red buses, but they
Sure.
look pretty similar. Like, I don't want there to be new things. Like, I just want everything to be a little, futuristic within reach.
And even just you don't have them on the ship eating weird, like future food pills, and like everything feels recognizable in their day to day.
I mean, look, I love everything about this movie, but
Correct.
the first 20 minutes, correct.
Correct.
But the first 20 minutes of this movie, which is the most like, we're all just living on this ship together, chatting, figuring things out. There's no chaos yet, is like just some of my favorite shit. So you have the communications booth, which is like, it's It's like the reality show Big Brother. You go sit in a
Yeah.
chair and talk to a screen. You have the weird kind of like hologram chamber where you can kind of watch 3D movies. Love that. Love the way that looks. You got Benedict Wong just like making a stir fry for everybody, right? And he's like, it's chicken today. He's like, yeah, like that's real food. Very Alien to me. Alien the movie, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, Alien has the cryosleep thing, right? So our characters are waking up and they're still pretty fresh to this thing. Whereas this movie starts and it's like everyone is just kind of like has been worn down to a nub.
As you say, Griff, Cillian Murphy and Chris Evans fight. They fight twice in this movie,
Yes.
both times the same way.
Yes.
This like boyish headlock.
Yeah.
Both times Michelle Yeoh and Rose Byrne are like, you done? Like,
Yes.
which I love their reaction to it. They're like,
Well, but
all
even-
you've done is waste our oxygen with your nonsense.
The
That's enough."
hologram room, right, is all this like this sense you get from the beginning of this movie of they really factored psychology into this mission. There are so many things set up on the ship in the chain of command to make sure that these people aren't losing their minds.
Right.
Because that's the greatest thing. I saw this movie in Paris, France.
Okay.
Ooh la la.
I know. But it came out in Paris in March of 2007. I was in Paris
Is that
vacation.
true? It came out before anywhere else?
Uh-huh.
All right, I'm looking this up.
I'm telling you dead to rights.
Okay.
It came out March 2007. I was walking around Paris. I see these giant posters that say,
Par le réalisateur, du 28 days later,
Sure.
a train spotting.
and have
Watto is
yes,
there?
Watto was
Okay.
reading. He did the voiceover narration of most French trailers at that time. Has this cast on it, right? I think I had not heard of this movie.
Okay.
I didn't know this film was in development or production.
You hadn't seen the trailer?
It's March 2007.
Okay.
The trailer was not out, to the best of my knowledge.
Well, okay. I don't know what's going on with you, but certainly I lived in Britain.
You lived in Britain, as we all know.
This came out in April 2007 in Britain, and like it was pushed down my throat. It has a great trailer.
This came out in Paris in March 2007. Maybe it was the first week of April.
It was April.
Okay,
Yeah.
then it was the first week of April, my friend. Okay?
It was the second, but yeah, early April.
Mm,
Oh, I'm just looking at IMDb.
well, I think you're a liar.
Okay. All right.
It was supposed to come out in November in the U.S.,
Yes, it ends
And
up
then they
coming out
pulled
in
it up to the
July.
summer. Right.
Yes.
but so there was no marketing.
Might have been better to do November.
It would have been better.
Yeah.
There was no marketing in the U.S. at this point in time. I don't think I knew that this movie existed. I started seeing all these posters with this cast on the streets. I was like, what the fuck is this? I went to see it. I saw it in a giant screen on like the Champs-Elysees, one of those multiplexes there. No one else was in the theater. I saw the first showing and I was
Sure.
like, this thing's a fucking masterpiece. And then went back to New York and told everyone, I was like, get ready for this fucking movie. Right.
Right.
And then, it comes out, it ends up coming out 4 months later in 10 theaters and bombs and disappears.
Bombed so hard in America. Just made no money here.
But there were like 5 or 6 months. I thought at first it was going to be longer because it wasn't going to be until November, right? Where I was just hyping this movie up to people. And one of the things I would say to my friends and telling them why this movie was good was it's the one movie that actually gets right what it's like to be in space for that long.
Right.
And my
right,
friends would say,
right.
what do you mean like you have any personal knowledge of that?
Yeah, what do you know about being in space?
The fuck are you talking about? And I was like, I don't know how to put it, but I watched this movie, and from the first scene of them all sitting around the table, you just feel the energy of these people have been here for years.
Yep.
They will be here for years beyond that. They basically are all like, outside of little tensions, they're all basically on the level,
They're
fine
friends
with each other.
or whatever. They
But, like,
respect each
They
other.
pretty much worn through every conversation they can possibly have. Originally Rose Byrne and Cillian Murphy were supposed to have a romance in this movie, which I wish they had shot and sent the footage only to me. But
Okay,
Danny
Jeff
Boyle
Wells.
was like, I think they're past sex at this point.
Yeah, which I can imagine. It's
I
just
think it
like-
works against the energy
I don't
of
know.
the
What if you
movie
went in
of
the
the
hologram
boredom.
room? And some,
Look,
like,
I think they all jerk off in the hologram room, but I think if you're on this mission, the idea of even with all the hotties looking around and being like, should I sleep with them? It's just like, what am I doing here? Like everyone is just kind of like clocking in,
Yeah.
Getting it done.
Yes. Okay. Here's some things.
Please.
design choices.
Mhm.
No white suits for the astronauts, obviously. Gold samurai armor,
I was going to
essentially.
say the samurai armor.
Brilliant choice by them.
But samurai armor that meets like a diving suit.
Right.
And
right,
like the hurt locker, like bomb disposal
Absolutely.
suit.
Totally.
Yes.
Absolutely.
The fact that they're in
those
like,
things,
yeah,
I
like
think,
a diving bell.
were insane.
Yes.
I think like they were hard to make. It was brutal to be inside of them. At one point, Hiroyuki Sanada basically just like freaked out and they had to like get him out of there. Like, it sounds like it was a nightmare.
The way he shoots inside of those.
Oh, it's so good when they're like, and then you see them like sucking on the straw. There's like some water in there. Yeah.
Adam Savage of Mythbusters, who now does YouTube videos where he mostly shows off film props and either his own collection or goes to other people who have the original costumes or props. Complete coincidence, just like a week ago, posted a video of this suit. He went to the guy who owns this suit and is just sort of studying it and the make of it and all of that. And it's a fascinating video. I recommend that people watch.
Sure. Yeah, there's only 2 of them that they made, I think. Like there may be 3 total.
The reflective gold. I mean, that aesthetic of this movie of like they need to deflect and reflect the energy of the sun in other directions as much as possible.
When you're in the ship,
Mhm.
inside the ship.
Mhm.
Obviously, when you're outside, there's yon sun, which is big, bright, and yellow.
Mhm.
Inside,
2
is
scoops
Boyle.
sunglasses.
everything is painted blue, gray, green. There's nothing orange, yellow, or red. There's no strawberries, no oranges, nothing in that color hue at all. I wanted you to be in this like blue, gray, steel blue world. So when you go outside, you flush the audience with this color palette of the sun. It's like a man dying of thirst and you drown him in cold water, is how he puts it, which is very colorful language.
Here's a take from me.
Mm.
I think this movie is almost as good at using color to convey temperature as Do the Right Thing.
It's the trick that he just described totally works.
Incredible.
Yes.
This is a movie where you actually feel when things are hot and when things are cold and when things are neutral. Which is kind of the most important thing he needs to sell in terms of the tension of the thing.
The way he talks about making this movie is that everyone hated everyone at the end of it.
Perfect.
It was a nightmare to make.
Great.
The way Danny Boyle puts it is like he has this quote where he says, Ang Lee, the great Ang Lee, says directors aren't particularly nice people. I know what he means now. I'm not an unpleasant person, but you have to be merciless and push people very hard. And then later he says, like, I fell out with everybody. You have to be so uncompromising. I would never make a sequel to this movie. Basically just like awful.
I have no interest in ever doing a sci-fi again. It's funny, he never works with any of these people again. Right?
But now, of course,
now he would.
Now he and Cillian are sort of like, oh, we'll do another 28 days.
Right.
Like there is, but yeah, does he not?
He doesn't
work
do
with...
another Garland movie. He doesn't work with any of this cast again, right?
Jeez, I mean, but he eventually
recommends Rose Byrne for the movie he's producing.
My big question is, he didn't even really work with Andrew McDonald for a long time after this?
No, until Trainspotting 2. This is like, it feels like everyone needs.
Like, okay, I don't want to look at you for a while.
That's the fucking energy in the movie. It's the dynamic between the characters that like. There's that great story with fucking Nashville that Robert Altman put the entire cast, which, is 80 people, all in the same like shitty motel by the side of the road.
Okay.
And was like, everyone gets paid the same amount of money. Everyone is here every day for the entire run of show because I want to be able to, in the moment, decide who gets added to a scene or removed from a scene. So everyone was just like kind of crappy accommodations there for 3 or 4 months filming. And then Karen Black, they let shoot out all of her stuff in like 4 days and paid her more money and put her in the nice hotel in downtown Nashville.
Sure.
And it was like, because I want all of them to hate her.
Yeah, I mean, you always hear about those tricks, like Matt Damon not doing boot camp with the guys in Saving Private Ryan, so they all just like, fuck you.
Yeah.
You didn't have to suffer like we did.
And it doesn't feel like it was a conscious thing, but the tensions that arose in making this film, the difficulty making this film, just seeps into the DNA.
The sweatiness, the exhaustion, it's all on screen. Some clever, just final, we'll do the plot in a sec, but some clever little tidbits. When they're in the sun room, looking at the sun, that's a real rig that they built that's like fucking shooting so much light at them. Because he was like, I want this to feel real. I don't want it to be CGI. Like, I want them to really be dealing with that. When Chris Evans is in like the forest, they went to a forest and shot it. He was like, I don't want to like CG this shit. I want it to look like proper.
There's a lot of practical effects in this movie. There's a lot of using non-digital processes to get some of the light qualities and all of that. There's a lot of model work. But the other thing is, and I just, once again, not having seen this film in a while after having seen it so many times in a short number of years, it is crazy to me how much you can feel the influence of this film on the last 10 years of space movies, considering that this movie was such a flop. Where I'm just like, I see things in Gravity, Prometheus, Interstellar, like all of these, The Martian. It feels like this kind of reinvigorated the serious space movie for another generation, which then became this run of very successful films.
There are some huge hits: Martian, Interstellar,
Gravity.
Arrival, is ground based, but that's like sort of smart sci-fi.
Prometheus
Ad
and
Astra
Covenant
does way better than this movie.
Yeah,
it wasn't like a
absolutely.
massive hit, but it made over $100 million worldwide.
And all these sort of major directors, and I do think there's
Lucy in the Sky. No, I'm kidding.
But like, where was this
Prometheus obviously is
Yes.
after this. I feel like there's Life, like even trash like that.
the moment he's making this movie?
The Midnight Sun Sky. What was that thing called?
Sure, the Clooney. The moment he's making this film, you're pretty much in the fallout of like Red Planet, Mission to Mars,
Sure, there's
Sphere.
those early late 90s, early 2000s things
Right.
that don't work. Mission to Mars is probably. I mean, Star Trek Abrams is a year after this. And that's
two. It's 09.
It's 2 years after this. I can't remember.
Okay. Yes.
And that's the opposite of this movie. I love that
Fun,
movie,
poppy,
but it's
yes.
fun and glossy.
Apple
and,
Store. Yeah.
Apple Store, exactly.
Yes.
Wall-E, there's stuff like that. But you're right. Like there is a few years later you start to see, and I'm sure if I fucking talk to Christopher Nolan, and I'd like to,
Yes.
and he can call me, and
Yeah,
my number is this.
Same.
Just put my number in,
Yeah.
Alex.
Okay.
And I said, like, you see Sunshine? You're like, because Cillian,
Yeah.
that's one of your
Of
guys.
course. Yeah.
I'm sure Nolan
I'm
likes
sure.
this movie.
I'm sure.
What
And
if he doesn't?
I
He's,
even like for how
stupid.
much this
Sun couldn't go out.
I would punch him in the dick if he said he didn't like this movie. For how much this film is clearly indebted to Alien, I feel like there's a lot in Prometheus and Covenant that comes from this.
There might be. I don't know.
It felt like
Fuck off. Whoa, Ridley
fuck
Scott's
off. This movie feels like Danny Boyle like shaking up the space movie and resetting it for the next 15 years
here. Yeah.
to some degree.
Well, he's a really good director.
He's a really good
People should
director.
Take him more seriously,
My point I was going to make specifically is
in my opinion. Yeah.
his whole thing of like, I don't want them reacting to nothing, right? When Prometheus is being made, people were like, this is genius. Ridley Scott has revolutionized the filmmaking game. You watch interviews with Fassbender and Theron, and they talk about this. He like did all the visual effects in advance so that when they are
They could
in the
look at
ship,
things. Right.
they're surrounded by screens.
Right.
So that rather than looking at a blue screen having to imagine it, it's like that's what it looks like.
That's what it's
Outside the
gonna look
window,
like in the
that's what it's
movie.
going to look like.
Right.
And Danny Boyle is like the first one I know of to basically do a version of that on this film. They didn't have the budget to be able to do like fully rendered CGI, but what you're talking about of like, we're going to put a really bright light here. We're going to go to the forest. I want to like deprive this movie of people having to look at nothing. There will be something that is at least a reasonable facsimile of what they should be seeing. And he would create practical effects or project images or whatever it was, where it's just like there's that tangibility to this fucking thing. It doesn't feel like anyone is having to imagine.
The film is set in 2057.
Sun is dying.
The sun is dying. Earth is freezing. One mission to restart the sun didn't work. We don't
Fuck.
know why.
Here's the sequel, Icarus II.
So last shot, Icarus II. Now,
An ironic name.
I was going to say, much like calling this film Sunshine's a mistake, maybe you don't call your plane, your spaceship Icarus.
Yeah.
Icarus, he didn't make it. The sun got his ass.
He in fact, Ben, the legend is, flew too close to the sun.
Right. So maybe you just call it something else. Whatever. Sun Slayer.
Yeah.
Right?
That's good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It is a good question if this movie was released under the title Icarus and the mission was Project Sunshine or whatever.
Sure. That makes sense. The Sunshine.
Yeah.
The USS Sunshine.
Right. It would make sense for them to call the ship the Sunshine or the mission Sunshine.
That would make more sense.
Yes.
But no, it's the Icarus II.
Mhm.
It is a giant solar shield made of gold Behind that, a bomb the size of the fucking island of Manhattan or
Yes.
whatever they say. And then behind that, this long, spindly ship that's just like the International Space Station. Right? It's just a bunch of modules, right? Bedrooms, hologram room.
It's a railroad apartment.
It's a great, exactly.
Yes.
It's got got the plant room. Yeah.
Right. The garden.
What else do you think they got in there? I don't know. Planet Fitness,
I'm
right?
saying, though, just
basketball
like,
court, definitely. Yeah.
just look at how quickly this movie sets up everything, right? You have like truly 2 sentences from Cillian Murphy
A
voiceover.
little bit of voiceover.
Right. Which a lot of these movies would do that for the first 10 minutes. Basically, what's the bare minimum he needs to say to you? Our son was dying.
And how did I end up in this situation?
Right. I bet you're
When he
wondering.
said that. Bet you're wondering.
Yeah.
There's only
Record
one
scratch.
physicist who knows how to work the bomb.
Freeze frame. No, it's like the sun is dying. Our mission was to drop a bomb off and restart it. Great. Done. And then just very quickly, you're like, meet everyone. Everyone has a distinct vibe. Everyone has a distinct job. Here are all the different rooms on the ship. It does such a good job of setting up. You don't need the spatial geography of where the rooms are in relation to each other that much, but you need to know what every room is.
You got Kappa, played by Cillian Murphy, the physicist.
Bright blue eyes.
Mace, played by Chris Evans, the engineer.
Badass.
But he's scrawny.
Yeah, I mean, he's got an all right body. I don't
Of
know,
course,
you
but
know.
I'm saying compared
to
to
now?
fucking what he looks like now, he's like a goddamn
Especially
lump.
before they give him
it's-
the haircut.
Stanley Tucci hadn't, gotten his hands on him
Yeah,
yet.
no super,
super soldiered him.
Serum.
Yeah.
Cassie, played by Rose Byrne, the pilot.
Bossy round face. Tired round face.
So tired. Her face isn't
The
particularly
hottest
but
performer.
she's so beautiful.
So tired.
Corazon, played by Michelle Yeoh, the biologist. Love a biologist. Siral, played by Cliff Curtis, the psychologist.
Ben, thumbs up.
/ doctor.
If
I
there's
like
ever been a
Cliff.
Ben character.
I love this guy.
I mean, I love him as an actor
Cliff,
so
of course,
much.
was Tanawari in Avatar: The Way of Water. He was the
course.
head of the Makaina
He's
tribe.
very good
Yep.
in that film.
Told them not to communicate with Pyakon. I don't know if you've heard of Pyakon, the outcast Tolkien.
I mean, he broke their natural laws, but, there's a reason for it.
I'm sorry. I was bringing this up apropos of nothing.
Okay.
But I was doing some Rose Byrne Wikipedia checking. Rose Byrne, of course, now married to Bobby Cannavale, the hottest in the game.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah,
Right?
they're a hot couple.
Unbelievable couple. But I saw there was like someone Rose Byrne was previously listed as being in a relationship with for 6 years. I think from 2004 to 2010. And I was like, who is this? And they were like, Australian actor. And I was like, who's this Australian actor that she was with for 6 years? Lee Scoresby himself from Avatar: The Way of Water. Rose Byrne used to date the shitty whaler who gets his fucking arm chopped off
Brendan
by
Cow.
Pyakon.
Now,
fuck.
Lee Scoresby is the cowboy from His Dark Materials that Lin-Manuel
God damn
Miranda
it.
played.
His name is Scoresby.
His name
by
is
the way.
Scoresby. Mick Scoresby, apparently.
Oh,
Although I don't
sorry.
remember anyone saying his first name in
No,
that movie. He's just
Scoresby.
Scoresby. He's the one who's always like, I've got quotas, baby.
Isn't that funny to just
Yeah.
imagine that couple made up of these two sci-fi characters? Just tired Rose Byrne being like, please don't kill him, and being like, let's get the fucking whale juice.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of pictures if you want to see him.
Yeah.
Yeah, they dated for years. Look,
Weird couple.
you've got Troy Garrity as Harvey, the communications officer.
He's the wet blanket. We're not supposed to like him.
We're not. And then Hiroyuki Sanada as Kaneda, the captain,
Yes.
who just is fucking like just radiating captain energy.
Yes.
He's so good at it. And then Benedict Wong as Trey, who's listed here as the navigator. Yeah, he's the navigator. Yeah, he's the one who does all the. He has one job.
He's got one job and he fucks it up.
He doesn't do a good job.
No.
That's it.
Mhm.
Doesn't feel like there's anyone missing here,
No.
right? You're not like, why don't they have an X?
And no one's doubled up.
It's a good breadth of jobs.
No one feels like a redundancy.
Right.
You know?
Well, who's in charge of fun?
who's the captain of fun?
Yeah.
Who do you think the most fun person? No one is that fun.
No one's fun.
No.
As we've said, everyone feels very worn out.
I think Evans thinks he's fun, but he's so aggro. He's the only one who's still got energy.
But when he has energy, but he doesn't make stupid jokes.
No.
There's no point at which he's doing dumb, look to the camera kind of jokes.
Yeah.
And Chris Evans had just done tons of that. Obviously in Fantastic Four, he's in another teen movie, right? He had done that kind of stuff.
So can I throw this out?
You could see him doing some witticisms.
Can I throw this out?
No, you can't.
Please, I beg of you,
All right,
let me.
fine. Go ahead.
Okay. Absolute conjecture on my part. Supported by nothing.
Okay.
I think this is the performance that got him Captain America. I have to believe that someone at some chain of Marvel, this is the one. Because everything he was doing up until this point, as you said, was very jokey. It was hot shot, little shit, quip a minute, right? He was sort of like baby Ryan Reynolds-ing. That's Johnny Storm's whole thing. But as you said, not another teen movie. He's like a parody of a handsome
he's
guy.
The handsome,
he was on this
stupid
Fox sitcom I used to watch with Milo Ventimiglia called Opposite Sex.
Yeah.
Where he was at an all-girls school. And that was his whole thing, was being like sort of like a smug Lothario thing. When they announced that he was the frontrunner for Captain America, and this was probably the year after this, in 2008 or 9,
Sure.
that he's being shortlisted for the part, everyone's response was, well, that's weird because he already played Human Torch.
He's already played a Marvel character.
And also, this guy's too jokey, too smug, too sarcastic. Captain
America's
America
supposed to be this
really
square,
earnest.
Yeah, yeah.
There's that self-seriousness to Captain America that this guy can't sell. And I immediately went, that's great casting because I've seen fucking Sunshine. And Sunshine was, even though I think he is the bright spot of those Fantastic Four movies, when I saw this movie, basically from the moment he enters on
he
screen.
does have more of the energy that he will do in the, in the Captain America
I wasn't
movies.
calling...
The sort of like solid,
Yes.
resolute guy. Yeah.
I didn't... It's not like he came on screen and I went, oh, this guy's going to play Captain America. But he came on screen and I went, holy shit, this guy's a movie star. I thought this guy was charismatic and funny.
Do you prefer him with the long hair? Are you sad when he cuts
wig.
it? Are you sad when he cuts it?
I think I would like him with actual long hair.
Yeah.
I think the wig's a little crummy.
I like the idea of the long hair, though,
Yes.
that like they've just been kind of like goofing off because it's like, but now that it's like we're close to the sun, it's like, all right, I'll get a haircut, right? Let's.
And you need the reset of this guy coming in with like kind of renewed, lean vigor. But yeah, I just remember watching this and like his stoicism. He's so good in the silent moments of this film. Just the sort of like energy he's got bottled the entire time. For a guy who was being such a fucking like rapid fire delivery dude in all these movies, being so smug and glib and doing it well, I was like, oh, this guy's got like a basement. This guy's got actual depth as an actor. And I think, the whole modern Chris Evans run doesn't happen unless someone gives him a part like this.
I agree with that. Cool. Maybe that is Kevin Feige's. Maybe if I sat him down, maybe he would say, well, you know what? I loved him.
Maybe it was Sarah Haley Finn. Maybe it was Joe Johnson. I don't know whom. But I just have to imagine someone watched this movie and went, hear me out.
There's a movie. Yeah.
Evans.
Icarus II is going towards the sun. There's an observation deck. Siral has gotten a little obsessed with pumping up the volume in the observation deck. Great idea.
You have your opening narration. Then you cut to this great establishing shot of the ship. And then the first character you're actually seeing is Siral. I love that it's your introduction to actual humanity in this movie.
Right.
Is Siral sitting in the observation deck. Like you've set up the conflict of this movie. And then he's not your main character. But the first thing we're seeing is how fucking insane the sun is.
The observation deck is... Where is it on the ship? I'm not exactly... Is it the front? Is it the front most of the ship?
Yeah.
I think so.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
I mean, you see it. You see there are shots of like this one little window. You see it from the exterior.
It's like there's the shield, there's the bomb, and then the first module is, I guess, the
question if it's
observation deck.
within the shield.
I think it has to be within the shield.
It's
or
like a
through
tiny
the shield
window
somehow.
within that shield.
You have to just accept that this thing exists because it doesn't make sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because why didn't they build the whole fucking ship out of whatever this thing is?
Sure.
But I think you just kind of have to be like, well, there's just one panel of the shield that is transparent somehow.
Which is such a good dynamic to set up from the very beginning of like, right. The power of this thing is truly awesome.
Now, look,
right? This is an awe-inspiring thing. If you were this close to the sun, if you were on this mission, you would be so captivated by getting closer to the sun than anyone had before and just setting it up with this edging.
Sun is big.
This guy just sits here every day with his fucking aviator sunglasses on and toes the line with a computer voice and goes like, can you show me a little bit more? And the fact that she's immediately like, if I gave you what's the level right now? It's 2%. Give me 4%. If I give you 4%, you die. I can give you 3.1 for 30 seconds.
Yeah, I can give you 3.1 for 30 seconds.
What a good starting
four
point
will blind you.
to just be like, holy shit, right? The sun is intense.
Don't look at it.
Don't look at it. But this guy is like addicted.
Yeah, well, I would probably like to do that as
And
well.
here he is with his sunglasses.
I'm gonna look
and
at
you're
fucking
like,
Benedict Wong all day. He's a handsome guy, but come on.
is this guy the wild man on ship? No, he walks out of this room and you're like, he's the psychologist.
Right.
He's the one who's supposed to be making sure that no one else is going crazy.
I think it's sort of like Cliff Curtis talks about this. I also should say there's this commentary you can listen to on the DVD of Brian Cox, the physicist. And they might, I listened to it long ago. I haven't in a while. They might talk about stuff like that. Like, where's this room supposed to be? How would that, they try to talk through the science.
But Boyle also talks a lot about, he was like, as much as it's science possible, I'm going to make the concessions that work for the stylization of the movie. They all move in slow motion when they're in space, even though that's not really realistic because it looks wrong to audiences if they move too fast. Right?
Right.
I'll do the whooshing sounds when the ships are flying by, even though there's a vacuum of sound in space. Like some of the stuff you have to do, even if it goes against the science.
There's certain leaps that you just have to accept. Right.
No one floated though and squirted liquid into their mouth.
No.
There's no floating. There's gravity.
Drinking juice in the air, what you're saying.
That's
where there's
a
like
huge thing
droplets
for
of
me.
juice and you go
Yeah.
like, cup,
I'm sorry.
cup.
Yep.
Obviously, like a movie like Gravity, that's like, we're going to make this in the real strictures of like, that's how it is in space.
They shot it in space, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just they had to spend a lot of money making everyone
So
float
expensive.
around in that fucking movie. And in this movie, it's like, yep, there's technology that makes you not float anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. They're going to the sun. Yes, Siral is getting a little addicted to looking at it. Yes, Chris Evans and Cillian Murphy are a little
They got brothers. energy.
testosterone-y.
Yeah.
There's this sort of like they're about to cross this sort of barrier where they're so suffused by the sun's radiation that they can't send communication. So it's kind of like that weird, if you got a message you want to send, you might want to do it now because
Another great.
I mean, there's
setup.
they are ostensibly supposed to be coming back.
Yeah.
But everyone clearly is fairly resigned to like, look, we may not.
And the first mission failed.
The first mission failed and they don't know why.
Yeah.
And like, there's this sort of,
And if they failed this mission, there's no there to go back to.
there's like, this is one of those movies where Boyle had everyone sit down and write out character biographies for themselves and stuff. Like, and the idea is supposed to be that they were picked because they don't have, a yearning for home. Like they don't have family connections that they're too worried about or whatever. And Troy Garrity's character is supposed to be the one who actually they kind of fucked up and he kind of does because he's the only one who's like, what do you mean we can't get home?
I love that it's unspoken.
It's unspoken, but like it's there. Like he's the only one who's kind of
You
nervy
keep
about
waiting
it.
for him to have the scene where he's like, you don't understand
He's
my
like
daughter.
stroking a picture.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so great that it's kind of just fundamental in his being. But just another piece of like such fucking efficient character building, right? That it's like our introduction to Cillian Murphy is him doing the video message. Basically the thing that like Interstellar takes like an hour and a half to build to.
Right.
You're leading with the emotion of this guy and who he misses, but also the emotional intelligence of him saying like, look, I don't have a lot of time. You're not going to send me another message, but don't worry. I know everything you want to say.
Right.
In this very empathetic way. He's like, it can be unspoken. I get it. I understand. I can imagine what you would be saying to me. And this guy gets caught up in the emotion of the thing. This is now the first track of the score that gets reused a lot. This movie is notorious for its score being reused in other things.
Yeah.
But this opening sort of very dreamy, emotional theme that plays under Cillian Murphy's video message. And then you basically cut to Chris Evans has him in a headlock.
Yeah.
Cillian Murphy took too long. Now no one else gets a message.
Yeah, I'd be fucking mad.
It just says so much about like the sensitivity of Cillian Murphy, Chris Evans only knowing how to vent his frustration through violence when his frustration is you didn't let me tell my mom how much I love her or whatever,
Right. So they're going to the sun. They're passing through the radiation, barrier or whatever.
They're losing communication.
And then they start hearing, well, first they see Mercury, which is a scene I love, where they're actually having fun. They all sit down on the observation
It's a
deck
presentation.
and Kaneda is like, look, Mercury, because Mercury is this tiny little planet that's very close to the sun, revolving around it, weird little place. And Mercury, you see it You see the surface. Mercury's this kind of metallic planet.
Yeah, it's got like
It's got
a
this
metal
dense
surface.
metal core.
And
And
they
the
have
surface
to-
is probably rocks, but like
they
it's
put the
very heavy
filter
metal
on it.
core.
Yeah.
Yeah, they put the and Orson Welles is there doing Mercury Theater.
Yes.
I don't know what are some other Mercury things. And that is the like sort of internal antenna that amplifies things for them.
Mhm.
And they start hearing this creepy noise. Please, I now ask, put the noise in right here. The distress beacon
yes.
noise. I think
It's a good noise.
I
It's
think
a
it is
great
one of
noise.
the most effective
Yes.
little pieces of sound design.
100%.
You hear it
agree.
so many times while they're sort of like pondering, what do
Yeah.
we do? What do we do? And it's like this abstract like cry. It sounds like a whale noise or
Yeah.
something.
But it feels like, you know how there's like different ambulance sounds from across the like world. There's
Yeah.
different like emergency broadcast noises. There's something about this alarm that it's just like I've never heard this in another
Right.
movie before. It's so
No,
unique to
and once
this.
again, this is a trope of these types of films. We've seen this beat so many times. This is the inciting incident of so many of these types of films, especially as we said, so many of these movies that have come out in the 15 years since this film. Of like they're on a mission, they get a weird broadcast. The question becomes: do you follow the broadcast and roll the dice, or do you stick to the original plan?
Now, here's my only complaint about this movie.
Yeah.
They just shouldn't do it.
They shouldn't do it,
And everything that goes wrong is because they do it.
of course. But I love that.
But
I
it's
love
tempting.
the classic.
Yeah.
You make one mistake that cannot be undone, and the rest of the movie is you trying to dig yourself out of a hole
Right.
that keeps on getting deeper and deeper and deeper. This is the other area in which I think Gravity must have had some influence on this movie, although I know that film was in development for a long time. But the build of this movie and the fact that so much of it takes place in close to real time, you know, it's not actually presenting real time in the same way Gravity is, but it does feel like the events happen in a very condensed
Wait,
period.
how would Gravity have an impact on this film?
I'm saying the opposite.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Gravity has that Rube Goldberg machine effect of everything that goes
Then
wrong
this,
affects
then
the
this,
next. She
then
tries
this.
to fix this and it leads to
Sure,
another
sure,
problem,
sure.
whatever. And I think this movie just has a similar tightness while not trying to be like,
I know,
this
it's
is
just you're so frustrated because you're like, you shouldn't have done that.
Of course.
And then Chris Evans is always there being like, shouldn't have done that.
well, and I love that they, you know, it's Chris Evans wants to make it a vote. Right?
Yeah. And Cliff Curtis is like, this isn't a democracy. We're scientists. We'll figure it out.
Right. He's the main scientist. He's the physicist. He's the one who gets
Kappa
the choice.
gets to pick. Right.
Right. Kaneda gives the choice to Kappa. Kappa is like, don't make me choose.
Right. I don't
What's
wanna
your
do that.
answer?
Right.
It's a coin toss.
Right.
So if you flip the coin, what would you say?
Yeah.
And you can see in real time him making this decision that he knows. Like the fact that it's not a decision made in confidence. He's not being punished for his hubris.
Right.
It was truly a coin
And they're not
flip.
trying to save anyone.
No.
There's no like, well, what happened to those guys? I mean, they want to know,
The logic is
but they're not like, we got to help them.
the logic is really simple, which is the first team failed. They have a bomb that wasn't used.
right.
We have one bomb.
I guess there's that element of like, maybe if we go over there, we'll also see what went wrong for them. So whatever
I
happened.
think there's
to them.
that,
Of
but
course,
they're also
what
just
happened
like
was the guy
that
went
gives us
crazy.
2 bites at the apple.
Yeah,
that
no,
gives us a
yeah.
backup
Yeah,
plan,
I don't know. That's what they say. That's what they say.
which we could use.
Yeah.
Versus stay the course.
Just stay the course.
David.
Yep.
You're a daddy.
True.
Daddy David.
Yes.
But I'm going to be parental here.
What?
We got to have the talk.
What?
It's a 3-letter word.
Okay.
It ends with X.
Okay. I can think of one.
No, you
What?
potty brain.
Oh no.
Not that one. I'm talking about a tux.
Oh.
A tuxedo.
Tuxedo. What's the etymology of that word? What a great word.
I don't know. It's an unbelievable word. Look, when you need a tux, the best place to go get one is the black tux. Now, I'll say this. I'll say it, David. I saw some listeners getting snarky in the blank check Reddit.
all these fancy pants advertising their tuxedo company.
Do they think this is really the target audience, right? Hey, Black Tux doesn't just sell fancy tuxedos. They sell all kinds of suits. This is what you need if you're going to a wedding.
Yes, if
you
you
got a
need a suit
graduation.
for a formal
funeral.
occasion.
This is the whole point. We are telling you, we know, blank check listeners, that you're not dressing fancy on a regular basis.
Maybe you are,
We know
but you
that.
don't have to be.
But maybe you have a one-off event, and you don't want to buy a suit just for this one
you want to
event.
drop hundreds and hundreds of dollars on something. Why don't you rent a suit?
You don't want something off the rack
Or a
that's barely
tux.
going to fit you. This is the thing. Black Tux is going to make sure you look sharp.
You take the Black Tux Fit quiz.
Yep.
You pick the style you want to rock, and boom, Tux is delivered to your door 10 days before the day you need it. That's
Easy.
plenty of time to try it on and make sure it wears you well.
It's easy, and then when it's done, they send you the shipping materials to send it right back to them.
If the fit's not quite right, they got a Black Tux Fit guarantee. You can order a better size within a day or two, and they'll send another one right away.
Their turnaround times
no
are
extra cost.
so fast. Yes.
If you want an in-store experience, they've got showrooms around the country.
Mhm.
Okay. We are using Black Tux
Absolutely, for our live show.
for our live show
Brooklyn
coming up
Opera
because
House.
we're going to fancy it up.
We're going as fancy as we can.
I took the size quiz.
Yes.
It's easy.
I
as
took the
heck.
size quiz, and the result I got was good. They went good size.
And you've used Black Tux before?
I have for multiple, at least 2 weddings where I have been groomsman.
Mhm.
A groomsman.
A groom's
One
man.
of them, dare I say, a best man.
Wow.
It made it so easy because my friends who were getting married were just able to set it and go, hey, this is the suit that everyone wears.
Bam.
You know, if you're organizing a wedding or something like that, you pick the style, everyone just goes, they submit their sizes, it gets shipped to them. You know no one's going to mess up.
Now, I'm going to call to action. now.
Please, I insist.
Rent or buy. The Black Tux is the best place to go when you need a tuxedo for a wedding or special night. And right now, when you go to theblacktux.com/check and use code CHECK, you'll save $20 off your order. That's THEBLACKTUX.com/check, code CHECK to save $20. Theblacktux.com/check, code CHECK. Theblacktux.com.
Could not have said it any more clearly myself.
Thank you.
Something I question is like Siral starting to get a little possessed by the sun.
Yes,
Yes.
like the idea.
Is that
he's
part
like the
of
mirror
maybe his
image.
decision?
He's the mirror
Yes.
image of Pinbacker, is how
Right.
Cliff Curtis kind of
Yeah.
puts it in interviews. Like, you know, obviously Pinbacker, Mark Strong's villain, he got consumed by the sun in some crazy way, and
He becomes a
went
sun
wild.
fundamentalist.
Right.
A fundamentalist.
A fundamentalist. And yeah, maybe Cyril's not going to kill everyone on the ship, but he similarly is kind of getting obsessed with
There's
the
a
sun.
mania kicking in.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, you talk about the third act turn, right? And Boyle, let me find the exact phrasing he used here. But he was basically like, he likes having these elements in his movies that disrupt the reality.
Sure.
Right? And usually Boyle is a very impressionistic filmmaker. He is not trying to present reality as it is.
Suppose.
He is using very loud cinematic language. He's using very visible editing and cinematography and music to like evoke a feeling rather than making his craft invisible, you know, in service of just the story. I think in a lot of ways, this is his most muted and grounded film in that the only time he starts using cinematic language in that way is basically when Pinbacker comes in. And Pinbacker is basically, I know I'm jumping ahead here,
You're
but
jumping
it's
ahead.
like this thing that cannot be filmed.
Yeah, that which I love.
Right.
The camera can't even look at him.
And I
Yeah.
think, you know, it's like
Yeah, I was gonna. I don't think you can call this film muted. I got it. It's not.
within the Boyle canon, I'm saying only. It's
Yeah.
not muted.
Yeah.
Within the Boyle canon, I'm saying that's what's wild about it is his style is so much more extreme in most of his films. The point I want to make here is that he's like Pinbacker is the thing for me, the equivalent of like the baby in Trainspotting, right?
Okay, sure.
And I think Trainspotting does the baby, it does going through the toilet at like minute 5.
Yeah.
Whereas this movie sets you into reality and then shakes it up. But it is set up from the very beginning, as you said, with Cliff Curtis's character, because I don't think he believes that the sun is actually supernatural. But I do think he's getting at this thing of like, here are scientists in the future who think that they can combat the way of nature, right? That they can correct.
The way of nature, the way of the universe.
Yes.
Mm.
This is like, maybe we're just supposed to die now. This
Right.
is the universe running its course. And they're like, we have advanced to a point where we could actually make this a choice and we can reverse this. And the closer they get to the sun, the more it starts to warp their brains, not on a supernatural level, but on the level of like, it is impossible to comprehend this thing. You know, like the closer they get, the more you're the guy who sits in the observation room with the sunglasses and just looks at it, the less reality makes sense to you.
Mm.
The less your small life makes sense. The more you start feeling like there's
There's-
things I just don't understand.
There's
here.
this moment where Kath is trying to figure it out. What
Mhm.
should I do? And the computer is basically saying, like, at a certain point, I can't guess anymore.
Yeah.
you get this close to the sun and then like it's either the
There's
probability
too many
is too insane.
variables. Yeah.
Right. And that's what's happening to them. They're all
Great.
getting crazier and less predictable.
And
as
tired,
they
Especially
get
because
because
closer.
they're
clearly.
scientists.
Yes.
Mm.
Right. They're so like logical. They're so like analytical. Like and this is something that is just like, completely out of comprehension.
Yes. A great computer voice in this movie.
Incredible.
It toes a perfect line between having some personality but not feeling like
Cheapo Chung is the name of the
Really good.
actress.
this is her first film.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
She's done a lot of stuff since.
she's done some stuff since. A lot of TV.
Mhm.
So they decide to go to the Icarus I, but
Oh.
Benedict Wong's character Trey does all the calculations right and plots their course correctly, but forgets to adjust the sun shield.
It's like one tiny fucking mistake.
And it's the the sun shield.
I wouldn't call it tiny.
Yeah, it's like
I would
because
say it's a huge.
You know,
because
you're
there's
right.
some debate in this
I would
movie.
argue it has some negative consequences.
In this film, he kills himself, right?
Yes.
And there's some debate in the movie
Did
later
Pinbacker kill
over
him?
whether Pinbacker
Yeah.
killed him. And I was like, last night I was kind of sort of, clicking around, reading
Entertaining the
articles,
idea. Sure.
because Pinbacker at that point's on a rampage anyway. And one guy was like, yeah, but remember, this guy made a fuck up so bad that he doomed humanity
Yes.
forever. That might weigh on you. That might be enough to just make you, especially after
Yeah.
2 years or 4 years, however long they've been in this fucking mission, like going like completely crazy, like getting so stressed out about it. Yeah, that might cause you to crack.
This whole dynamic is so good, and it's one of those things where you're like, I can't believe a sci-fi movie hasn't used this before. Of like, the guy makes the fucking error. He doesn't carry the one,
Right.
right?
Right.
He dooms them. He is now like in a catatonic state of depression.
Right.
And very quickly you set up this thing of like, we don't have enough oxygen. If he died, it would help us.
Yeah.
We don't want to kill him.
But
Maybe we
something's
don't
gotta
need to do
happen.
anything to stop him from killing himself. Just the weird hushed tones with which they talk about it almost immediately, where they're like, well, we're all furious at this guy. There's some sympathy, there's some empathy, but also like hard not to be furious, hard not to feel a
They
little
only have one
vindictive.
job. All their lives are expendable. That's how they're thinking about things. So they're inhumane in a way about all this stuff.
Benny Wong plays that moment so well, his breakdown in the
forgot!
explanation.
I forgot.
Because like, how do you even say that?
He
You know,
forgot
this,
to
like,
adjust the sunshine.
Irreversible mistake.
So
Yes.
it burns out a couple things, right? Fucks them up.
They have to go out to adjust manually.
Which, I mean,
It's never a good
but
sign.
I just love a spacewalk.
Oh.
And obviously these suits are great.
Yes.
There's this. So the score is by Underworld, the band.
With John Murphy.
And then, but first Underworld watched the movie and improvised music over it.
Cool.
And John Murphy comes in, he does the orchestral stuff.
Okay.
The,
Yeah.
the theme that got ripped off. But the Underworld, like crunchy electronic music that's playing while they're like, trying to fix the shield. The weird little lights that pop up. I love those things.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
balloon light.
They're like a octopus looking
Yes.
kind of thing.
Yes. All that is great. And this is the first, Kaneda is the first guy to die.
Yeah.
Because it's so effective. While they're doing this, the communications tower burns up, and that burns up the oxygen garden. Things start to go crazy, right?
Yeah. There's the moment, well, because Evans, why am I forgetting Evans' character's name?
Mace.
I keep on wanting to say Cage, because Cage doesn't need the MCU. Mace volunteers Kappa.
Yes,
He's
he
like,
does.
if someone has to go fix it, it needs to be Kappa, because Kappa, I'm not letting go of Kappa being the problem here.
Yeah, it's kind of a dick move.
He's still angry at Kappa for basically the chain of events that leads to Benedict Wong's mistake.
Right.
Trey's mistake. So he volunteers him, but then Sonata is like, I understand I need to make the sacrifice here.
Right.
He's not going out alone. It has to be two of us. I'm the captain. It's my responsibility.
Right.
And then one of us is going to have to stay behind to hold this down. Once again, Kappa is the one who needs to stay alive. We need to make sure he is the one still standing at the time when the payload has to be dropped.
Yeah, because basically the Icarus starts to move the shield back towards its original alignment,
Yeah.
and they're like, well, let's just turn that off. And Mace is the one who's like, we can't do that. We have to fix the shield. Like, we have to protect the ship and all that. And like you say, yeah, Kaneda can die. He doesn't have any purpose.
And they're all
He's just
getting
the captain. Who
they're all
cares?
getting emotional and worked up, and Mace is like, no, this is what needs to.
Right.
He's got that sort of resolve of like, You guys don't get it. None of us
We
matter.
just are shooting this goddamn thing into the sun. That's the whole plan.
Right. We cannot make calculations based on human emotions.
How do you feel about Kaneda dying, where like the fire is like going up the shield, and he's
also,
like, blah, blah, blah.
The number one moment is Cliff Curtis getting in his ear.
What do you see? It's so good.
That he's so jealous that this guy's going to get to see it at full blast. The one thing he wants to hear is what it feels
What does
like.
it look like?
It bright.
Ah!
And Cliff Curtis has started
Hot!
peeling at this point. They've now started
he's
putting
gotten a
like
little
prosthetic
blistery.
like gold member flakes that he's like taking off
He's
his
having an
foot.
unfortunate smelting accident.
Right. But he's in stage 1 of full pinbacker.
He is like going turkey.
Yes.
He's going turkey mode.
Yes. It's such a good sequence. I just think it's you said, David, the score that everyone rips off in this movie, right? So often there are like bits of film score that get reused a lot in trailers or in movies. They work as good shorthand, but you very quickly hear, especially in final films, like, oh, they must have used this as a temp track, and then they hired someone to rewrite it and do something similar.
And he just kind of did the same thing.
What's so unique about the Sunshine score is people actually just license the track. Like in Wonder Woman 1984, when she flies for the first time, they just use the track.
Right.
They just will license a track from another score because they nailed it so fucking hard. All the moments in this where it's sort of like the sun slowly coming closer, them in the suits, moving slowly, trying to fight time, and everything just swelling. It's like, it's just become part of the language of film music now.
It's very good.
Yeah. I feel like there are like 3 movies that have just licensed
No, I think you're right.
the
It
track
gets used all
along
the time.
with Wonder Woman. Yeah.
It's a lot like the Hans Zimmer Thin Red Line track, Journey to the Line, which
Yes.
is well used in that movie, but then
Yes.
got just reused over and over and
Over and
again.
over. Yeah.
All right, so now they're all fucked up. Kaneda's dead. They're out. They're running out of oxygen because their fucking thing got
Right.
burned
You have
up.
that first conversation where Michelle Yeoh's like, not to be an asshole, but we would have enough oxygen if more people died.
Well, yeah. They're also kind of like, we've got enough oxygen to make it there. This is where Troy
Right.
Garrity starts to get itchy because they're like, well, at least we can make it there.
Well, we should point out that the plant room gets burnt.
It got burned up.
Yes.
I see it.
All burned
I
up.
called it
Sorry.
their fucking thing. Was that not clear?
No.
No.
And-
They're fucking things.
So they make it to Icarus I.
Yes.
I saw this film, I didn't even say this, at the Odeon Camden Town in London.
Congratulations.
And I was excited for this film. I like Danny Boyle. I love space movies.
Mhm.
But it did arrive with only so much fanfare.
Yeah.
And this is I love the first half hour of this movie. I love the environmentals, just like the atmosphere. But then when they dock with the Icarus one, it's all dusty,
Ugh.
dark.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And they've got that trick where anytime the light flashes over
Mhm.
the lens of the camera, you see one of the faces from the photo of the
Just
original
one frame.
crew
Yeah.
for just a
The quick
split
flash.
second.
Yeah.
And then finally, when they finally find them all dead in the observation deck, they do it one more time and you see the whole photo.
Mhm.
And I remember just being, I was like, this is the best shit I've ever
This
seen.
movie's a
I'm
masterpiece.
fucking losing my mind right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I'm 21 years old and I can't, I need sunshine all day.
Yeah.
How do we feel about the Icarus one? It's creepy. At
That's
one
a-
point,
it's covered
Cliff
in
Curtis
dust,
says
and
that
they say-
80% of
yeah.
dust is human skin, which is just not true. It's just like made up fact.
I'll
by
say
him.
this though, it's one of those things that has stuck with me ever since I saw this movie, and I think about
true
it.
at all.
I know it's not true, but I just accept it.
It might be. Here's my defense of that line.
Okay.
Maybe in a spaceship where there's less stuff
Sure.
and there's only people.
Yeah.
Apart from that, it's like a bunch of metal. Maybe
What else
then
could
it
it
could
be?
be mostly human skin.
Yeah.
All right. That's all.
Look, it's an effective line.
It's a great line because obviously they're basically in this tomb.
Mhm.
They don't know it yet, but it doesn't have like an alive vibe in there.
No, and they do such a good job of once again not having the big info dump scene where they're like, look, we don't know exactly what happened to Pinbacker. We don't know why Icarus I failed. It's just kind of unspoken that it's like there's a little bit of a mystery around that thing.
Yeah, there's
They lost communication.
They have the video of Pinbacker that you see
Yes.
Siral watching, the cheerful video.
Yes.
But where he is kind of like, the sun's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, you ever think about it, like wild stuff, right? That sun, it's in my,
It's sticking in the craw.
yeah, it's in the noodle.
Yeah. It's dancing around in there.
And then of course they load up this ship, and he's like, "One more video for you.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm a vampire now. I love the sun." And it's all distorted, and you can't really see him.
Yeah.
Do you think he's living off of the sun? Like, is he feeding off of? That's what I kind of imagine.
I mean,
like, he doesn't seem like he's cooking and taking care of himself.
There's this throwaway line they say, like,
he's eating
look,
dust.
they had enough food for 8 people for 3 years, and you can kind of do the math of like, okay, one person could probably survive on that.
Yeah.
So maybe he's like grabbing some, kind bars and going, once in a while.
I know he's the villain of the film.
Yeah.
He's the villain of the piece. And we are not supposed to be rooting for him or identifying with his ideology, right? But I still think, whatchamacallit, the Weathering with You.
Sure.
Is the only other movie I've seen that has a character to this length sort of make the argument of like, who are we to fight environmental disaster?
Yeah, like,
if
let's
the planet
just give
wants
it
to
up.
die,
Right. Sure.
then that's its will. We're meaningless.
And
And it is just an interesting thing to think about.
there's also
I don't agree with it.
there's
I wanna
also
make it clear. I don't agree with it.
Vera Farmiga in Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Oh,
I feel like-
sensitive nuance performance.
Right, but I feel like her take is also that where she's like, look, these guys have shown up. I think maybe we hand the earth to them. And it's
Yes.
sort of that. It's a similar
No.
kind of pro-environment, like,
Yes.
radical environmental take of like, look, maybe we just let it all wash over us and like wipe us out.
Obviously, with Godzilla, you're dealing more with metaphor, and Godzilla is always about the balance between like the natural order of things and like, atomic weapons and all this sort of stuff. I just think Weathering with You and Sunshine are the two movies that do it with actual weather,
Yeah.
that do it with
No.
the forces of the universe, where it's like, if our planet is becoming unlivable, then maybe we shouldn't be alive.
Pinbacker is basically, his take seems to be, look, the sun decided to kill us all, and I say we do what the sun says.
Right. It doesn't go beyond that. It's just like, I now have seen this thing up close. And
it's the boss of me.
Everything, I'm just like, anything we want to do feels
He's-
stupid and petty.
He's selfish though, because he wants to be the
you
last
think?
man.
Sort of.
That's, I think, a big part of his motivation. As much as he's like initially presenting it as like, who are we? I think
Right.
it's really more like, I am the one, the last one who will be standing.
Well, yes, he's got a bit of a. I was, he doesn't have a god complex because he thinks the sun is God, but he's got a son of God.
Yeah, he's sort of whatever, the acolyte of the
Complex.
sun,
You're
I
right.
guess. Like,
He's the DJ Khaled of the sun.
I don't know if that's something that we'll leave in the episode.
No,
We're gonna lose that one.
He points to the sun and he's like, "Good work,
Another one.
keep shining."
Here's my question.
You're like, and
there's-
you get your name on the track.
there's no answer to this question.
Major key.
Like the
Sun was
film,
doing most of the heavy lifting.
the film is very much like he went crazy, which
Yes.
I do like that this film often is sort of like the answer to your question is the sun.
Mhm.
The answer to your question is he got so close to the sun that X happened.
Yeah.
Right. But obviously he's still alive. He's a little sunburned
a little bit,
and he's very into
a little crispy.
the sun.
Mhm.
Everyone else on the ship is dead. They all went to the observation deck and burned themselves up,
Mhm.
right? You see them all sitting there.
Yes.
It's this like chilling kind of Pompeii, the weird corpses from Pompeii, right? They're all these like dusty, and someone touches them and they like fall apart. And you're like, "Ooh."
Gross.
Do you think they were with him? Like that he got them on board with that and they went crazy too. And then one day they just did that. Or do you think he kind of like trapped them in there and cooked them?
It's a good question.
Cooked.
You think he cooked them?
Oh,
Definitely.
really?
Definitely.
It's just never answered. We
Yeah.
have no idea about it. We don't know what the other
Because he's the captain, and I think he overrided the system
Interesting.
and just like boosted it up, right, to
Yeah.
a dangerous level
Sure.
of sunshine.
Yeah.
That's the
and
name of the movie.
and cooked them all.
I always
You think they were all just on board with him?
No, I read it as, or I have read it as, they all were starting to get their brain broken by the sun a little bit, but he to the greatest degree.
Right.
So the rest of them were just kind of like, we failed this mission.
He like broke the ship.
Right.
The ship is like functional, but he has like broken the computer, which is why it's just like standing there.
Right. We failed this mission, and we're starting to see this argument the sun is more powerful and we're foolish to fight it.
Right.
So they're like, this is kind of the noble way to kill ourselves, is to get the full Cliff Curtis moment of like full sun
Obviously,
experience.
it's an incredibly effective
And that he's the
image.
one who feels like he's serving a higher purpose, where he's like, I can't die because I have to continue serving the sun, basically.
But it's
both-
all good.
both are
Everything is, and it's all very Alex Garland. Just
Yes.
that kind of like at a certain point, something our minds will just break in the face of
Yeah.
like unfettered nature.
Mhm.
While they're poking around on Icarus I, the ships decouple.
Yes.
This is when Pinbacker has walked onto Icarus II. A weird amount of people in my life have not understood that that's how he got on.
Yes.
I get that question. I don't know if, you guys probably don't field a lot of sunshine questions, but I just get that question a lot where people are like, I don't get how do you get on the ship? Like, he literally just walked over.
I sit like fucking Neil Crowder at a table with a sign that says, ask me questions about sunshine. With a fucking cup of coffee.
He just walks onto Icarus II and,
Steven Crowder?
Shuts the door
Neil
behind him.
Crowder. What the fuck am I talking about?
Steven Crowder?
It's louder with Crowder. Go on.
And so now you've got, it's Kappa,
Mm-hmm.
Siral, Mace, and Troy Garrity. I refuse to say his name because I don't remember it.
Yeah.
Harvey,
of course.
Yes. There's one spacesuit.
Yes.
How do we get across? And
Mace and Rose Byrne are back in the main ship.
Mace and
Trey...
no. Mace is on the ship. No, it's
I'm sorry.
Rose
Yes.
Byrne and Michelle Yoko's on.
Yes.
They're still on the main ship.
Trey's
sedated,
having a depression nap,
essentially.
Yeah.
And the other four are on the Icarus I. And Harvey immediately is like, well, maybe I should go over because communications are very important. We're talking.
I'm the captain.
Yeah, and he's now officially captain because he was second in command.
It's kind of funny too because his equipment got cooked.
Yeah, he has like no purpose.
So he has truly no purpose.
Not really.
Other than, I guess, being like a senior ranking officer.
Right.
That's
his whole
argument.
argument is chain of command. They're like, you're meaningless.
Yeah.
And Mace is like literally they're like putting the suit on Kappa.
Yeah.
And Harvey's like, well, wait a second. And Mace is like, yeah, whatever. He's going over.
It's just such a good detail that for how much Mace kind of hates Kappa, he never fights the notion that Kappa is the most important.
Never fights that. Exactly.
He hates it.
No,
but he's so mission based.
He's the whole. We have one purpose, and he is the center of it.
And then this plan is so cool of him being like, we can fucking rip up the lining of the ship, hug him, bear hug him, and use the force of the ejection to get inside.
And one of them has to stay behind. Mm-hmm. Harvey immediately starts going, "Oh, and it's gonna be me, huh?" And Cliff Curtis is like, "No. It'll be me," which is a great line the way he delivers it. Yeah. But I do think Cliff Curtis is also kind of want to go back to the room.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, right. He took a look at that and he's like,
an addict.
Yes.
Or like an addict.
Yeah. It's not like an ability thing.
He's not an addict, to be clear.
He's not.
You can't store coats in him.
No,
right?
Cliff Curtis has no upstairs. He's all one level.
There's no trapdoor. You pull a string and he opens up. No. Okay.
Can I correct this quickly? For so long, I have heard these scurrilous rumors that for 11 months out of the year, Christmas ornaments are stored within Cliff Curtis. And they are not. They are not. And you see people that come towards him and they're looking, they're opening his mouth.
If you're a little boy and you discover millions of dollars, you can't go and hide in Cliff Curtis.
And let's also make this clear. If you're Christopher Eccleston, do not climb on top of Cliff Curtis,
and
drill holes in his head, and use him to look up
and spy down. No, you can't do that either.
That's a rude thing to do.
And he tried, which is, I've heard that story.
He's one of our finest actors.
So Ciril's basically like, oh, one of us has to die. I guess I'll do it anyway. Can you guys get out of here so I can get back to the crazy sunroom?
I love that he doesn't play the moment you're used to in these movies of the grand sacrifice, the heroic sacrifice, because he's just like, yeah, no, I'll do it. I just feels like it makes sense.
All right,
but he really he's jonesing for that fucking son. The fact that I think Kaneda got to see it is the thing that finally breaks
That's
him.
Like burning his buns.
Right. Yeah. Now the notion that someone he knows got firsthand exposure and then he sees all of the dead bodies on the observation deck. Now he's really thinking about what 100% would look like. And then his death is so great.
It's getting all burned up.
But they do this ejection.
Yeah, there's I think, just very satisfying dramatic irony of Troy Garrity missing. I'm sorry. You kind of are just sort of
yeah. Oh, absolutely. And the terrifying fate of you see they're off by 2%.
Right.
He hits a wall. His trajectory is thrown off by 15 degrees.
It's over.
They can't get him. They don't even try.
No. Kappa grabs Chris Harvey, Evans and tosses him in.
Fucking airlock.
Like a sack of potatoes. Right? Yeah.
And then you just see him there. He thinks I must be inside now. That's how I've always read it. Because he pulls off the face.
Right. The tape. Yeah.
And I
Okay.
just imagine it's one of those things where it's like, well, you're all bundled up. You thought this was going to last 5 seconds. You have no sense of really where you are. He assumes I must be back indoors now.
Right.
And he rips his face off and then
You're
just
right, he does rip it
immediately
off.
freezes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And does the sort of like takes one breath.
Yeah.
And,
Icy eyes.
Oh man, when his leg shatters
And
and,
then he
you see
shatters,
the
yeah.
like crystallized blood.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And they hold it for a while. Like they give you 2 or 3 shots of his body, his frozen body just floating,
Yeah.
knowing like he's going to fucking hit an object and shatter.
It's nasty.
But they make you wait for it.
And then they have like it's almost like a cartoon a little bit of having him get to the edge of the shield and just cook up like
Yes.
a little tiny spot.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
It's probably the most effective death in the film.
Yeah.
Even though all the film's death scenes are quite effective.
he's the character you like the least.
And he's the character you like and know the least, and he's played by
Right.
kind of the least important actor.
Yeah.
And no offense to Troy Garrity.
Yeah, but this energy now, they're back in the ship, right? Chris Evans is like hypothermic.
Yeah, he's got like some freezer burn, you know.
Evans plays all this stuff really well.
He does. He does
Evans,
a very
like,
good job with the physical
Because
stuff.
McGregor, Boyle always talked about how McGregor's secret skill as an actor, at least in the Boyle movies, was how good he was at playing pain. He was like, he's bizarrely good at playing physical pain on screen.
Right.
And you have the early setup of Evans dropping the wrench into the water cooler,
Yeah,
the coolant.
picks it up and goes,
Right. And there's that incredible like camera shift where the camera shifts with his body as he flops onto the ground, and then like his hand is right there and it's icy frozen. But he plays all the temperature shit really, really well. And now it's like, okay, they're safe. But suddenly it's like, we've lost 4 guys in like 12 hours.
That's true. They're
You know?
down to Cillian, Chris Evans, Rose Byrne, Michelle Yeoh. That's it, right?
And then the Trey question.
And then they have this sort of debate over Trey where
Yeah.
it's basically implied that Chris Evans is about to go kill him, and then he just
Right.
finds him dead.
They've
And it's
lost
like,
3
okay.
guys, I guess. But they've lost 3 guys in such quick.
Yeah, it's
So-
3 guys. Yeah, sure. And then
Yeah.
and then Trey is dead.
Yeah.
And so they're down to 4, and they're like, okay, well, here we go. And
Well,
then
there's
you
the
have
conversation about Trey.
Yeah, I said that.
But they take the vote. There's the
yeah.
line I want to call out.
Oh, okay. What's the line?
They're all saying like, look, there's the thing we can do. We've thought he's probably going to kill himself and we don't have to discourage him, but now it's time is of the essence. Maybe we push this along. There's a penance that needs to be paid. If he already wants to do it, we're helping him out, all this sort of shit. And then they go to Rose Byrne and she goes, I understand what you're saying.
Right.
I understand the calculation, but if you're asking for my vote, I can't give it to you.
Right.
Basically saying like, I'm not fighting your logic, but I do not have it within me to out loud say you should kill him.
Right.
It is a thing I cannot verbalize.
Which no one really ever says out
Right.
loud because they don't want to.
Right. And she just says, if you're asking for my vote, I cannot give it. And Evans just sort of says, like, this is happening, regardless.
Right.
And she takes this moment and she looks at him and says, try to find a kindness in it.
No, she says, make it easy for him.
And then she
somehow.
says, try to find some kindness.
Oh, I don't. Oh, here it is. I found the line. I'm
Yeah.
looking at it. You make it easy for him somehow. Find a kindness.
I just think that's a profound
It is
line.
a profound line, although I got to be honest. If I'm Chris Evans, I'd be like, the fuck you? What? I'm going to give him a Kit Kat? What are you talking about? You see this ship?
But like big sad-eyed Rose Byrne, tired Rose Byrne.
Well, you want Rose Byrne to say that to you.
I do. I just think that's it.
When she's
it's
telling you to kill someone.
the situation's got so
And you would
bad.
do it.
So for her,
Yes.
absolutely. Situation's gotten so bad so quickly, and she's just barely trying to hold on to any sense of humanity they still have. I cannot argue logically. I'm not going to be this bleeding heart like kumbaya.
Yeah.
We can do it person. I understand we're fucked, but try to find some kindness. That just hits me really hard.
Yeah. Well, and who are you? Tag yourself. So you're saying you're the Rose Byrne? You're Rose Byrne? Tag yourself?
Yeah.
Or are you Pinbacker?
I'm
Be
less
honest.
smart. Sometimes. At my worst, I'm Pinbacker. When I'm on Twitter for too long, I'm Pinbacker. Twitter is my son. Yeah. Why am I looking at this?
Right.
Stop.
Yeah, you're Cliff Curtis, actually. You're like 3%. Your computer's like, I don't recommend. You're like, no,
Well,
I can do it.
David, that's very kind of you to say. I think recently I've been practicing Cliff Curtis
Right. Like
to try to make sure I don't go full Pinbacker.
30 seconds. 30 seconds.
Yeah, 30 seconds.
Who are you, Ben?
I think I'm Rose Byrne.
Yeah.
Who am I? I kind of think I want to see Corazon.
Yeah, she's
That
so
I'm just
good.
like kind of chill,
Yeah.
and I'm on my kind of like my own little tip, my own little like I'm having my own moment.
Just what is steady?
But then
hand?
there's
She's
just
down to earth.
disaster all
Yeah.
around me.
There's like a tinge of spirituality to
Yeah.
her. Her death hurts, even though she's not that crucial a character at that point. Like, the oxygen garden is
Yeah.
gone. Like, the point is that she's finding like a little bit of life left in it, but still,
Oh man, the little
little sapling. Yeah. But her death still hurts because it's Michelle Yeoh.
yeah.
Like her getting,
Well, it's-
beamed with the
yes.
not beamed, but jabbed with the scalpel.
This
It's
insane
why-
automatic scalpel.
It's so crazy. It's why casting is so important in a movie like this, where you just need to form really strong connections to people immediately.
But
you
a
could
lot
do
of
that
big
because
actors would be afraid to take
course.
apart that sort
course.
of, small.
because a lot of it gets into behavioral stuff. It's not having huge scenes to play, but you need some combination of actors who the audience has some prior relationship to, like Michelle Yeoh, where they're coming in with a built-in shorthand, and people who are just distinctive, who look distinct, who sound distinct, who act distinct, who are going to stand out from each other. You also, like, because Kaneda dies so early, she becomes the elder
a
statesman.
little bit.
She's a
As
generation
much as Michelle
above.
Yeoh doesn't want to be.
Of course, but I think that all works. The fact that in real life she didn't want that part, and then her character is the one who's sort of, even though Harvey will not stop reminding them that he is now the captain, you're like, everyone else is in a different age class, right?
You're saying Harvey is back out opting it up?
A little bit. I'm the captain now.
Yeah.
He's smacking the table saying, I'm the
Yeah.
captain now. No, but like Saneda and Yo are like a decade older than everyone else in the cast. At
Yeah.
least, right?
Oh, at least. I mean,
Right.
Michelle Yeoh at this point would have been like sort of almost 50.
Yeah.
No, like 45. Right? No, wait.
It's like
62.
Evans, Burns, Evans,
Yeah, like
Byrne,
45.
Murphy are all like late
In their
20s.
20s,
Cliff
right.
Curtis, Troy Garrity, 30s.
Sonata and Yeoh are
Garland,
like
yeah,
the same
30s,
age
yeah,
practically. They're
yeah.
both born in the early 60s. How old is Cliff Curtis? He's one of those. He's actually closer in age to those guys. He's
That's
one
what
of those.
I'm saying.
Yeah, he's like,
younger. He just has adult face.
No, but I'm saying no. He's 68. He was born in 1968. He's
Oh, is he
closer.
really?
He's secretly older
Okay.
than you think he is because he's
Yeah.
good looking.
He is.
Like he just basically has always looked the same.
He is.
Um,
But yeah, he goes in to try to electric scalpel him, sees that he's already slit his wrists. And then there's that brutal move where Chris Evans takes the blood from Trey's wrists and puts them on Cillian Murphy.
yeah, which I mean, relax, Mace.
This is on your hands.
Yeah.
This is where this belongs.
Yeah, maybe
Like,
don't do that.
It's a little blunt. It's fucking English 101 over here.
Yeah, also right. It's a little cheesy. It's
Yeah.
like we can even blood on this thing. Get it.
Yeah, but I like that he's
They're mad.
the character. Like, I don't think that's cheesy on the part of the movie. Mace is such an overcranked
He's-
guy.
If I'm Kappa, I'm like, look, I just threw your ass back into an airlock. I didn't
Yeah.
have to do that. Saved. Come on. You
Yes,
win some,
yes,
you lose somebody. So now they're on their way to the sun. Everything's going to be okay. And then you have the wonderful scare tactic to kick off the final act of the film of Kappa just chatting to the computer.
Yes.
Computer being like, you're all going to die soon, FYI. And he's like, no, what do you mean? There's only 4 of us. No, there's a 5th one. Well, who is it?
I regret to inform you, Trey has actually passed. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad
Yeah,
news.
right. Sorry, computer.
Yeah.
And then like where he's like, who's the 5th member of the
Yeah.
ship? And the computer's just like, unknown. And you just see like him standing there in the observation
Yeah.
deck. It's so good.
No, and I already sort of talked about it, but I love this choice of like Pinbacker cannot be filmed. Cameras cannot capture him.
The film just distorts around him.
Right.
You see him for just seconds at a time.
Yeah.
It's kind of a crazy choice
But it's
because
blown out and it gets stretched out and everything.
Mark Strong is covered in makeup.
Yes.
They definitely like did work.
Absolute full body.
Right. And yet you barely ever can see him.
He said he based the makeup on Niki Lauda.
Yes, who got burned up.
Yes, the real
the
Formula One
driver.
racer. Yeah. But yes, no, it's one of these incredible things where you're like, this must have been an unbelievable top to body, fully caked in, fucking 6 hours a day makeup job that they never give you a clear view of.
Right.
You
And
barely
have a
see
take
his
on
face
Pinbacker.
in this movie.
You only
Well-
see it a couple times.
Even in the videos, it's often obscured.
What I wonder too is because I keep thinking, like, is he eating the sun? Part of me is like,
You're really focused on
I really-
what is his food?
Sun chips, Ben.
Exactly, Ben. Sun chips.
Raisin
Capri
Bran,
Sun.
2
Capri
scoops.
Sun.
okay,
Yes, Capri Sun.
all right, now it's starting to make more
That
sense.
would be
Sunny
funny
D.
if he turns
Sunny
around and he's
D.
just sucking on one of those Capri Suns. He like puts the straw in really aggressively.
From the
Yeah.
bottom, though, of course.
I
From-
worship.
Yeah, Hurt Locker style.
Yeah.
I feel like he's emanating radiation.
Yes.
Like that's part of the
definitely.
idea
Yeah.
of why they're
It's literally tough
portraying
to be
him
in the
that
same
way.
room as him.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you know what I'm saying? Where he like Boyle chooses to basically like break the fourth wall and be like, it's the way I'm conveying his energy and how hard it is for them to perceive him in real time is I'm basically treating it like the cameras are not capable.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm acknowledging the framework of this movie to a certain degree. I love this now where we're going to spend a lot of this final act of the movie too. The sort of the bomb room, the payload room where it's almost like a Borg cube.
Yes, it doesn't seem to have conventional like sort of rules of physics.
No.
Like you seems like you can kind of just like fall from one side to another side and just kind of
Yes.
like reorient back up. And I like it's not explained.
It's this weird like almost MC
It is a big
Escher-
cube, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's like the box he's in at the end of Interstellar when he's trapped in like the
In the library.
in the loop. Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that. And the other way. I mean, he's on the outside. David,
Yes.
you seem like you've been stewing.
Oh no.
Stewing about a health problem?
Mm.
You want to open up? What's going on with your body these days?
So much. Yeah, you know that feeling where you're like almost going to text your group chat to get the opinion of your
Yes.
friends.
Right. I feel like
something
that's
weird going on with you.
what Mitch from Doughboys usually does.
Yes.
Why is this
100%.
doing that? We go, Mitch, these are questions that should be redirected to ZocDoc.
Exactly. Look, you're unlikely to find quality medical advice in your group chat, but you can find it from a doctor on ZocDoc because there are thousands of medical professionals there to help you. They listen like a friend and give you the expert care you need. Okay.
Look, here's the big point. ZocDoc is the only free app that lets you find and book doctors who are patient reviewed, take your insurance, are available when you need them, and treat almost every condition under the sun.
Or the moon.
Under the moon. I've had my fair share of health problems, David. I am living proof that survival of the fittest no longer matters in our society.
Yes.
I have betrayed the will of God
Yeah.
and through modern science have stayed
Yes.
alive
We need to reset so that it's like caveman times again and
Yes.
you'll just get wiped out.
immediately. But so often you get stuck in the medical bureaucracy hamster wheel.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare situation. It's hard to find the right doctor, right time, and sometimes you find the right person and they're not covered by your insurance and you go to your insurance provider, you ask them how to find someone in your... It's a whole mess. ZocDoc provides a real mitzvah,
Look, when you're not feeling your best
which is me at all times. I've never felt my best.
and you're always trying to hold it together,
Constantly.
finding take great care should not take up all your energy.
Mhm.
ZocDoc, use their free app. Millions of users rely on it, and you can find the right doctor that meets your needs, fits your schedule. You can book an appointment with a few taps in their app and start feeling better faster with
dong.
ZocDoc.
Ding dong.
Well,
Ding dong.
okay, hello.
Hi. So sorry.
Oh, it's the doctor.
Dr. Jeffrey Rush, I told you I'd be back. I think I have legs. This is going to last. I know the bid is I'm in a rush and I don't have time for you. But I was so busy seeing other patients that I was late. I missed the ad read.
Yeah, you missed the ad read.
Basically, you finished. You did,
I'm
you
done.
do the call to
I'm
action?
going to do this.
Okay. Can I witness the call to action?
Yes, listen.
Okay.
Go to ZocDoc.com/check and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then find and book a top-rated doctor today. Many are available within 24 hours. That's ZocDoc.com/check. ZocDoc.com/check.
I really need to just pare down my schedule. This is unsustainable.
Goodbye.
But now, yes, now the movie
It's
takes
all
this shift
action,
where, right. Now it's underworld music cranked up.
Yes.
It's a scary man with
The strings are going like
Yes.
anytime like he's anywhere near, and he's just like going to kill them all.
Cillian Murphy's trying to save his two friends and save the bomb.
He slashes Kappa, right? He like
Yes.
because Kappa's the one who finds him in the
Correct.
observation deck, and he kind of slashes at
And
him.
locks the door behind him.
Right. And then it's just a lot of running around.
Right.
He kills Karzan by stabbing her.
Yeah.
And so then it's really just Kappa, Cassie, and him.
Yes.
Oh, because the other one is Mace has to go to the engine room.
Yes.
He's like lifted everything, and Mace has to put everything back in, and Mace cuts his leg doing it, freezes, bleeds to death.
Yes.
And there's that tragic shot of his Tiva. He's wearing the sandal,
Oh, sure.
soaked in blood. No? Nobody? I just love it.
No, it's
Love
a
his
great
Tivas.
hero's death. I also just, I mean, it's like, it's the aliens thing, right? Where like you need at the beginning of the movie to show other people operating the power
Yeah,
loader
sure.
to
How this
understand
all
how it
works. Yeah.
This movie just sets up everything so well where it's just like, without feeling like foreshadowing. That's what I like. It just feels like this is all world building. And then of course, it's going to come down to Chris Evans having to go put his entire body in this thing.
And then just be like, do it.
Yeah.
Do it while he's dying.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing left to do.
No, and
Blow up the
Cillian
bomb.
Murphy, nightmare situation, trying his hardest to get through to his friends to tell him, hey, crazy sun man on board.
Yeah, right.
Stabbing up a storm.
I don't know what the warning is.
Yeah, he's
like what you blast out.
Got one of
there.
those motor scalpels. Jesus, look out.
Look out.
Look out.
Now, are you aware of the bullet that was dodged at the end of this film?
I don't know. Tell me.
Because obviously at the end of the movie, they're all on the bomb. There's that Rose Byrne rips off like some of Pinbacker's skin. That's fun.
Brutal moment.
So sick.
His like whole, right. She tries to grab onto his arm and basically the arm just goes with her.
Yes, which is great.
Yeah.
But, you know, at the end of the day, Kappa turns on the bomb. The bomb works.
Yes.
We assume. We see the sun getting brighter.
He has his and
And
he's
there's this moment where this like wall of fire
Yes.
approaches him.
and he's smiling.
Yeah.
You have the earlier conversation where he wakes up in the middle of the night and they compare their dreams too, where
Right,
he
she's
talks,
always
he's
dreaming of the
constantly having
surface of the sun.
falling into the sun. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what would have been a good needle drop? Steal My Sunshine by
Okay,
Len.
so that's what I'm talking about.
Oh,
here.
really?
Not that, of course. That would have been great. That would have been good.
I don't know. Does she like butter tart?
Danny Boyle
I was
initially wanted to use the song "Fix You" by Coldplay
Jesus.
over this moment.
Christ.
God.
Now he says it.
Yeah.
It was too cheesy.
Yeah.
He,
A
admits
Coldplay.
it.
A
It was-
Coldplay song.
It was his
putting-
idea and he was the one to kill it.
Correct.
Okay.
Like putting Coldplay over this did not work. However, he does say, boy, did it make me cry. Oh, God. But he will admit it was too cheesy. If they had done that, and I don't even dislike Coldplay in the way that I
don't know.
Coldplay's got all right, some
Whatever.
all
I
right
don't care.
stuff.
I don't
Give me
care.
a look.
Yes.
But, at this point, I had kind of gone off them.
Ben thinks they stink.
Yeah.
But if this movie ended with Coldplay, it would be...
Parachutes is actually kind of a good album.
The first two albums are pretty good, and the one
Yellow's
they did with
solid,
Brian
yeah,
Eno was
right.
all right, and who cares?
Yeah.
But if this ended with Coldplay, it would be a 0 out of 10 F minus.
Truly, the way people talk about
The last act of this film,
right, I'm like, they're insane. If Fix You was played over this, despite thinking every moment up until this point is perfect, I would think this movie was garbage. It would retroactively
Just,
kill
like,
everything
somebody
I liked about it.
Could easily on YouTube now
Yes.
go and just like layer Fix You over.
Right now, our listeners are
footage.
racing to Final Cut to see which one of them
And
can
maybe,
upload this to
like
Twitter
Danny
or
Boyle,
Reddit first. Yeah.
You will be moved watching that, but I
Yes.
doubt it. I think instead you'll just want to throw your laptop in the garbage.
Yeah.
But that was the initial plan.
Wow.
Imagine.
And
Instead, we just have beautiful underworld score, like
Right.
shimmery, weird score.
iconic score. This movie's lasting legacy
Yes.
is the score they play at this moment. I mean, the main theme is the thing when Kappa puts on the suit at the end and is trying to make it back, which is such a good, the seconds count down, you feeling the pressure of how hard it is to walk in that thing, how slow he's moving, the forces he's up against. What a good movie.
It is a great film.
And
the
then
final
you
shot,
have-
of course, is the
Right.
brilliant trick of they shot it in like fucking Norway or whatever, big frozen tundra. They just put the Sydney Opera House in the background.
Yes. Did you,
You know.
pick up on that, Ben?
No.
At the
You know,
end,
the
when
planet,
it's
you see
Kappa's
Earth.
sister and she sees the video clip,
Yeah.
in the background is the Sydney Opera House. So it's supposed to be that the sun dying has made it so that
It's
Australia
so
is
damn
frozen.
cold.
Oh, no, I did not realize that at all.
Right.
I was
It's
just
subtle.
I
but
was
it's-
just assuming it was some kind of structure buried in snow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Yeah, that's the state of Sydney.
yeah.
Damn.
Then the sun kind of goes like whoop.
Not the state of. I'm saying that's the
Yeah,
current
the
state of.
state
I don't
of
want people
Sydney.
correcting me. I know it's not a state; it's a city. Listen, it feels like we've talked about this being the era where Boyle takes the hard turn to sentimentality.
Mm.
that turns a lot of people off.
Sure, Slumdog Millionaire is the next year.
Right. It's 28 Days Later to Millions is when suddenly he starts being a little more open-hearted after his early films are so nasty and misanthropic in a lot of ways, right? This, I think, is a totally earned ending, and I think it's understated, and I find it very emotionally impactful.
I agree. It's a great ending.
This is Alex Garland's real wife, playing Kappa's sister.
Yeah, sure.
I believe is an animator and a filmmaker in her own right.
That's cool.
But yeah, it's just a perfect full circle. She's now receiving the video. And of course, his promise he made at the beginning of like, it's going to take 8 minutes to come back.
Right.
So if we've succeeded, you'll find out 8 minutes later.
Yeah.
And you see the sun starting to hit again. There's a future. There's a promise.
Yay!
It was not in vain.
It was all worth it.
Masterpiece, 10 out of 10.
Yeah, pretty much. I think so.
David, I like Prometheus.
Oh, it's so good.
I know you love Prometheus.
Love it.
And I'm a Prometheus defender.
Sure.
I do think rewatching this movie now, maybe for the first time post Prometheus, I was like, oh, this is the reason I'm a little underwhelmed by Prometheus. Isn't because I'm negatively comparing it to Alien. It's because I think Boyle did the modern Alien.
Sunshine is unbeatable.
Yeah.
I can't deny that.
Yeah. And it's just so
Prometheus
funny
is
for
great,
that
though.
run
It's
of
got,
like all those other movies we're talking about.
Fassbender in it.
Arrival, Interstellar, Gravity, Prometheus, Covenant, what have you. All of which I like. I'm like, I still think this is the best. I think this is the best space movie of the 21st century. Sort of hard space movie, you know?
Yeah, Interstellar is the one where I would struggle with the. I don't know. I love them.
Another
both.
movie that I obviously love as well.
You like it, but you don't like it. Like I like it.
I know they're just,
you know, I don't know. But I mean, I won't hear a thing against Sunshine, except maybe they should just call it something else. Fireball.
I like it being the title, even if it played against it. But this movie was
hot.
Such an atomic
just that noise.
bomb in theaters. I mean,
it was a bomb, certainly, especially in the United States.
The night this episode comes out, we will be screening this movie at the Metrograph, which is very cool that they were able to track down a 35mm print.
Cool.
I feel like this movie does not get rep screenings ever.
Do you think they're going to take my note of turning up the temperature in the theater?
God,
They're going to crank it.
Don't.
They can make it hot.
Hell yeah. Get ready to sweat if you're going to that.
And you got to wear sunglasses in the theater.
Yep.
But watching this movie again last night on Blu-ray, and notoriously cursed Blu-ray.
Yeah, it's like broken.
It's broken.
If you play it on certain devices, like it insists on doing like picture-in-picture commentary or something.
The early days of Blu-ray, Ben, when they were trying to be like, we're doing shit you could never do with DVD.
Yeah.
One of their big selling points that very quickly got abandoned because people were like, this was annoying.
Right.
Was that you could do sort of like picture-in-picture window stuff.
Jerry Maguire has a picture-in-picture commentary.
Rather than
Cruise
having
is like sitting like this.
Pure audio commentary, basically over your movie, little boxes and screens will appear with like little making of featurettes and things like that.
Okay.
And the Sunshine Blu-ray like has an error on it where it automatically does that and you can't turn it off.
Yeah,
that's annoying.
There's a way to fix it, I believe. You could like send your disc out.
There was a replacement program where you could send in your disc and they would update it with the new one, but they shipped out so many of the faulty disc that is basically unplayable to watch the movie in its actual just pure form. And this movie is not very popular or well known. So like the vast majority of discs that exist out there in the ether are from that first run. And even when people are like on a Reddit, we're like, the disc is out of print now because Disney owns Fox and they haven't re-released this on Blu-ray, right? And people who are like looking to buy discs are like, buyer beware. If you're buying a used copy of this movie, 9 times out of 10, it's the one that's unplayable. It's just a weird legacy thing of this movie that already barely has a legacy, that like it was kind of fucked on home video. But what was I going to say?
What is it? Boyle, man? He in physical media.
The Boyle physical
He's
media
so
run,
cursed.
and it's bizarre considering most of his films are at the one distributor. That Fox has done him dirty that hard, and even before Disney buying them, Fox was already doing him dirty on physical media. But watching this at home last night in my corrected, updated post mail-in Blu-ray, I was like, I just fucking can't wait to see this in a theater again.
Yeah,
can't wait to see this in a big screen.
I definitely haven't seen it in a theater since 2007.
So few people ever got to see, and I even think still when I talk about this movie to people, they're like, when did that happen? Like, this movie still doesn't have the cult you imagine it would have built by now. When you say, like, Danny Boyle in between 28 Days Later and Slumdog Millionaire, made a space movie with this cast. And it cost $40 million, and it has some of like the best visual effects of its decade. It looks incredible.
It does look incredible. The visual effects are perfect. There's like nothing wrong with them.
Yeah. Basically, there's a lot of practical stuff. They were really smart about when they could actually just put a thing in front of a camera.
Yep.
But the other thing with this movie was they spent a year on the visual effects. The way you get this level of effect done on a $40 million budget is that you don't rush.
Right.
There's the story I'm always fascinated by because it feels like more people should follow this lesson. But Paul, a movie you hate,
Awful movie.
the Greg Mottola Alien movie, where they have this main CGI character, but it was done at like a $25 million budget. And I read some interview with Mottola where they were like, how did you get it done at that budget? And he was like, the answer was we shot the film, we went to a good effects house, and they were like, we can do this at the budget you're asking for. It will take 2 years because you're going to be our lowest priority project.
Right.
And I think similarly with this movie, they shot this film in like 2005.
They shot this film in 2005. It's why this movie comes out only like basically a year before Slumdog.
Yes.
Which seems crazy because Slumdog is like a fairly complicated movie. But yeah, they shot it long ago.
It has a very long post-production
Sure
process, and then they sit on it even for a little while
Now,
after that.
With Paul, now, of course, in both of the circumstances we're citing, these movies came out and did poorly.
Horribly.
And with Sunshine, it may have just been, it was
Yeah.
a tough movie to market. It didn't have like a huge star, blah, 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 blah. With Paul, I do remember the feeling of like, we were kind of like, aren't we kind of done with this?
Oh, absolutely.
Like genre of comedy, you know, like it just felt a little late.
I agree. I'm no Paul
I'm not
defender.
beefing it. I'm not a beefing.
The only reason I bring this up is I do think it's interesting as there's an
No, it's very
ongoing
interesting.
dialogue about like VFX crunch
Yes.
and how unsustainable the Marvel model and all these places that are being rushed to like change 30% of the effects 6 weeks before the movie comes out. And you watch a film like this that looks incredible and you're like, oh, they got it done at 1/5 of the budget
Right.
and they just took their time.
Took their time.
That's all they did.
But you know what? You got to get
This looks god awful.
Paul sucks.
Yeah.
Oh, Paul. Oh, it's the worst.
Paul literally, Ben,
And Greg directed
confess flesh.
Yeah, no, he's
Yeah.
directed other good movies. There's no question.
what other movies?
You know, he had just
Superbad.
done
Oh,
Superbad.
shit.
Adventureland.
Yeah,
Wait,
Adventureland's
wow.
good. Like exactly. Like
Paul was the beginning of a bad run for him.
Dang.
Then he does Keeping Up with the Joneses.
well, in between, he did Clear History on HBO,
Oh,
which
it's
like
fun.
I think is pretty fun.
yeah.
It's really just Paul and Keeping Up with the Joneses, where it's like, I get your vibe is not action comedy. Like you
No.
know, you really just should just do these kind of low key comedies, right?
Can I
like,
say the
that's
thing
your
about
vibe.
Paul quickly? And then we're going to move on from Paul. It was the same, like, working title who had produced the two Edgar Wright Hot Fuzz movies, right?
Yeah.
Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah.
And they were like, what's your third movie? And Edgar Wright was like, I'm going to go off and do Scott Pilgrim.
Right.
So,
Which took him a long time. Too.
right.
Like,
So
that was
Simon
like-
Pegg and Nick Frost were like, well, at some point, Edgar Wright's going to come back. We're going to make the third film in our trilogy.
Right.
We sort of want to do a third movie together.
And
you-
also probably just agents were like, guys, what do you got?
Right,
You
give us
guys
the
are hot
thing.
stuff. Like, come on.
the
the two of
story
you.
the story with Paul, I swear to God, is near a park. The producer at Working Title was like, come on, come up with something. What's the third movie? What's the third movie for you two guys? And Simon Pegg, like as a joke, drew the dumbest thing he could think of, which was cartoon stick figures of the two of them, round almond-eyed alien. And then he just wrote Paul and had to arrow point to it. And he's like, I don't know, it's a movie, it's the two of us, Paul. Like he was joking, like, what would be the dumbest movie poster I could come up with? And she was like, yeah, we'll greenlight this.
Yeah.
Truly the origin of that movie is him being like, oh, what if we just had an alien named Paul? Like he was creating like a fake funny people poster
Well, he should
that he doodled. And I've
should have not
seen
done
the
that.
actual drawing. It's terrible.
Sure.
And she was like, I'm serious. We should make Paul.
They shouldn't. She was wrong.
She was
and
incredibly
Near Park
wrong.
has produced a lot of good movies.
Yeah, and that's why Trump got elected. Box office.
This film came out in America on July 20th, 2007.
It comes out like the same weekend as Transformers
Well,
on 10 screens.
it comes out on 10 screens. It's not Transformers.
It's
though.
not? Okay.
I mean, Transformers is out. Look, you just said number 4, which was Transformers.
Okay.
But-
Transformers was 4th of July that
Yeah,
week.
yeah,
They
yeah.
had Big Willie weekend.
But yeah, it comes out on 10 screens. Not sure why that was the
Just
move.
heat of the summer, they're giving this
A Fox
sci-fi
Searchlight
action film.
Well, they're giving it a
platform
Fox
release.
Searchlight platform release,
Right.
which is something you do in the fall.
You could have released this film in September on like 1,000 screens, and it probably would have done okay with no competition.
Look, almost anything would have done better because what
Yes.
they do the next week is they beef it up to 460 screens.
Yeah.
That doesn't go very well because that weekend it's against like, I mean, you know, like the Simpsons movie.
Sure.
You know,
This was a big ass summer.
yeah. And then they just pretty quickly are like, forget it. And it just, you know, by 3 weeks later, it's in like 40 screens.
What's the final total on this domestically?
$3.6
Okay.
million.
It's even higher than I thought it was.
And made 32 worldwide. It made more in the UK
But
and other places.
It still lost money overall.
Didn't do great.
No.
Number one at the box office
Okay,
this
July
weekend
20th.
is new. It's a comedy.
It's a new comedy, 2007, July. Superbad isn't until August.
Superbad has not come out yet.
Yeah.
This is a movie star comedy.
Uh-huh.
I would say it's one of his worst.
It's not a Will Ferrell.
Nope.
It's not a Jim Carrey.
No.
But of that
Yeah,
tier of guy, it's not a black. This is pre-Apatow takeover.
it is.
It's one of his worst. Oh, I think I know what it is. Is it a film I rewatched recently?
I think it is.
Is it I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry?
The gay firefighters, but they're not gay.
No.
But maybe it's okay
They're
to be
so
gay,
not
but
gay.
I'm not gay.
It's good for other people, but not me.
I did it for benefits.
Yeah.
Adam Sandler, Kevin James,
A Dugan picture.
a Dugan picture. It's opening to $34 million on its way to 119.
This
a
is
perfectly
when-
healthy run.
It's just Sandler was invincible. It didn't matter what the fuck it was. It would always make $130 million domestic, basically.
Correct. What happens at the end of that movie? Did they both marry like Salma Hayek or something?
He marries Jessica Biel.
Right, Jessica Biel.
Right.
She's the lawyer, right?
Yes,
She's
and
like you guys have a good case here.
Yes. And her brother's gay, so she's an ally. Kevin James remains a sad widow. What
Okay.
happens? They kiss on the... No, they don't kiss. They kiss at an earlier point. They have to appeal in front of Congress, and they... Oh, God. You know how that fucking movie ends, David? They get
I've
called
seen
out-
the ending and I
They
forget,
get called
yeah.
out for faking it.
Right.
And all their other like fireman buddies who have turned on them and become really homophobic do I am Spartacus. I'm gay. No, I'm gay.
God.
And they all pretend to be gay in the courtroom so that they're basically like, you would have to fire all of them.
We have to stop talking about
Terrible.
this.
I now pronounce you Chuck and Larry.
Good Ving Rhames performance. That's all I'll say.
Number 2 at the box
Do they
office.
pronounce them though, Chuck and Larry?
Well, someone does.
No, what's weird is they pronounce it Chuck and Lurie.
weird?
Mm.
Ben didn't like that. Number
They
2 in the
pronounce
box.
it Chuck and Lurie.
Oh, you're doubling down. Number 2 at the
Like
box
pronounce, because in the
office.
movie they're saying I now pronounce you like man and wife. And I made it a joke about the way you pronounce words.
Just cut it out.
Chuck and Lurie.
Number 2 at the box
It's
office
a double meaning
is
kind of thing.
a major franchise film.
Okay.
Uh,
Live Free or Die Hard.
no, that is number 6.
Okay.
So, you
Yeah.
know, that's out there.
Uh-huh.
It's the second weekend of it. It's already made $207 million.
Wow.
I think it's one of the better entries in this 8-film franchise.
8.
Yes, it's also the first in this franchise directed by this director who becomes kind of a mainstay.
Interesting. But it's not Justin Lin.
No.
It's an 8-film franchise. Can you tell me what number it is? Or will
5.
that give it away? This is 5 out of 8. And this guy stays on. Oh, it's the Potter. It's
But which one?
Order of the Phoenix.
Order of the Phoenix, Harry Potter.
Phoenix
You're a Phoenix.
It's
Harry.
Order of the Phoenix in it.
The worst.
I wish it was Order of the Phoenix.
Order of the Phoenix is David Yates taking over after the
worst.
quite. It's terrible. It's terrible. What you're doing is terrible.
I'm not pronouncing
All right, that's better. And like I feel like that book is this like very like that's when
Yeah.
J.K. Rowling starts to go kind of insane,
Mhm.
and that book is like loaded with all kinds of weird axe grinding that
Yeah.
she has about various things.
Which is weird because
she never has that vibe otherwise. I
She
know, I
never
know.
like just sort of like digs a hole and refuses to get out of it.
I'm not. I mean, it's not a. There's interesting stuff, and I
Yeah.
feel like he seizes on that, and he's like, let's make this a little more real world, a little more
Yes.
tactile, a little more political, and
It's a beautiful looking movie.
it looks incredible. I mostly
Is
like
that Philippe
movie a lot.
Rousseau?
I don't know.
I don't know. Whatever. Yeah, I like that
Nobody
movie.
else shot the 6th one. I can't remember who shot the 5th
Okay. Oh, maybe it was Bruno shot that one as well.
one.
Is Dobby in it?
Dobby's not in that
Wow,
one.
like
They cut Dobby out of a lot of the films.
Sławomir Idziak, another great cinematographer, shot it. They would get really like
Really
top
good.
of the line
Yeah.
crew guys for all those movies,
Mhm.
basically. Anyway, so that movie's doing great, but it was one of those weird. They did it in the summer. Potter usually better
Yeah.
as a winter franchise, but
That was
they
the
just dropped a
year-
few of them in the summer.
That was the year where it was. No, I'm getting this wrong. This was the 2009 thing.
What?
Potter was supposed to come out in Thanksgiving,
You're talking about
2008.
6. Potter 6,
Yeah.
yes, which they also dropped in
and it was the
best
cover of
one.
Entertainment Weekly as the fall movie preview. And
Right.
the week the cover came out, they were like, "We're pushing it to next summer." And the reason was because Dark Knight was so successful. If they had released Dark Knight and Harry Potter in the same year,
There was like some tax problem.
it was like next year we're gonna take a loss. Like
Right,
we
right,
will, the drop off will be so steep.
Sure, right.
If we have Harry Potter and Batman in the same year, we need to separate.
What you're
them.
hearing here is that Hollywood has always been well run. Now,
Always
number
well run.
3 at the
Amanda,
box
my
office.
brain is broken. Why do I remember these things?
Yeah, why do you remember that? Number 3 at the box office
Mhm.
is a musical. It's opening.
Hairspray.
The film is Hairspray. It's opening to $27 million,
Good opening,
which is solid.
but then it
but
multiplies.
has
like
a great multiplier.
motherfucker.
Yeah, it was a big hit. Great film, in my opinion.
I agree. The best Adam Shankman movie, and I say that as someone who is in an Adam Shankman.
You are in
movie.
an Adam Shankman movie, but Hairspray is better.
Far and
than
away, that's his
Disenchanted.
masterpiece.
It is his best film,
Yes.
and it has universally incredible performances.
Yeah.
But one.
But one, it's a shame because everyone else in that movie is fucking.
I think Travolta just does not work in them.
I think it's calamitous.
I
Travolta's
get what
performance in
they
that
were
movie feels like
thinking.
Pinbacker. It
I
feels like
get what they were
the camera
thinking.
can't
It's like,
capture what he's doing.
And obviously, like they're trying to do the Broadway thing, but it just doesn't work.
No, and I think
In the original movie,
I think
obviously.
he makes this catastrophic
Redesigned.
decision of like, oh, I'm not going to do it like a drag performance. I want to try to play it like a real woman.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and play this like sort of sensitive lady,
Right. And I think
And
it's
it's
a
like you're fucking John Travolta. This was
Yeah.
insane. This was a John Waters
the
thing.
makeup
like,
is terrifying. It's like you need to go camp with that performance, and his attempt at making it a sensitive, realistic thing is a failure.
But everyone else in that movie is amazing.
Phenomenal.
Marsden's amazing.
Yes.
Queen Latifah's amazing. Like everyone
Brittany
else
Snow.
is Zac Efron.
Yeah.
They
Efron's
all work.
so good in that movie.
Yeah.
Elijah Kelly Jr. is so good in that
Yeah,
movie.
Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah,
Even
Walken,
Bynes,
everyone.
in
The
this
whole-
sort of
whole
brief
thing
period where
rules.
Bynes was like, kind of possibly going to be a big movie star.
Yeah, that's the end of that period.
You pretty much
That
right
is
there.
the end.
When's What a Girl Wants?
Before.
What did a girl want?
To star in her own
Oxford
film
University.
above the title.
sorry,
What?
I said math.
Okay, Ben.
All right.
That
Number
was mean.
Number
I
4.
take it back.
Yeah.
Take it back. Number
Cut it
4 at the
out.
box
Or
office.
keep it in triple.
No, don't do that. No. Don't do that.
Okay.
Listen to me, Alex. Don't do that. Stop saying that because he does it. You have to stop saying it
I
because he
forgot.
does it.
I forgot that he actually does it.
He does it. He did it the last time, and he's going to do it again if we
I
don't
forgot
stop
that he
him.
doesn't.
Number 4, as you said, is Transformers,
Uh-huh.
which is a huge hit.
Yeah, it's
And
kind of
number
the
5
breakout of the summer. It's not the highest grossing, but it's
But
the one that
it did so well, and
Yes.
it was. Yeah, you're right. It was somewhat of.
And
Like,
it's
is that
the
going to work?
quote unquote original film that performs at the level of the three.
And people wonder why Hollywood's gone mad.
Yeah.
Number 5 at the box office
Mhm.
is a film we've covered on this podcast.
Okay, 2007.
It is a perfect masterpiece. One
It
of
is.
the best films of the year. It's an animated
Oh,
film.
Ratatouille.
It's Ratatouille.
Now, David, question for you.
The little rat opens a restaurant. He's chef.
This is week 3 or 4.
It's week 4 of Ratatouille.
What's it up to? What's it doing this weekend?
$165 million
Okay.
out of 206.
Yeah.
It's, mostly done.
Yeah.
Why do you
No,
ask?
no, it was a good multiplier because people were worried that was going to be their first flop, and
They
it
were.
opened to 50, and it did over 200. It did 4 times its opening weekend,
It did. It did very well.
and it's obviously
And he's a good rat.
right. And we've put it into Fort Knox, like it's everyone has agreed that it's one of the crowning achievements of humanity.
Right.
David, my question for you is:
What's that?
2007, I think, is thought of as like the last
It's a great year for
humongous movie year, right? It was the 99 of the 2000s. We maybe didn't have a year that clearly big in the 2010s.
It's the year with Zodiac, There Will Be Blood, No Country for Old Men, Ratatouille, Michael
Right.
Clayton. What else? Knocked Up, fucking Juno, Into the Wild, Assassination of Jesse James. What else? A lot more.
much like 1999, it's a year where you have a lot of big directors all making
Super
one of their
bad.
biggest films.
Yeah, sure.
And a lot of big kind of cultural seismic moves.
Beowulf,
Yes.
Charlie Wilson's Worth, A Bucket List. I mean, hit after hit.
So we've covered a fair,
Norbit.
we've covered a fair number of 2007 films.
We
as
have.
you've said.
We have.
I'm just curious because I know you have this spreadsheet fucking locked in. Where does Sunshine factor in your spreadsheet in a very competitive year?
You want to know what nominations it got?
Yeah.
Picture
Where would you put it in your 10?
in my top 10 of this year?
Yeah.
Don't yell at me.
No,
I
I won't.
have it fifth.
Okay.
Behind
No.
Zodiac, There Will Be Blood, No Country for Old Men, and Ratatouille.
No, I
which
think
are
I-
four movies I
This is
adore
my
as
thing.
much as this
I think it's
movie.
probably 5 for me after some combination of Zodiac, No Country, Ratatouille, and Michael Clayton.
Clayton, I have sixth.
Right. I put this ahead of There Will Be Blood, but I like There Will Be Blood less than other PTAs.
Milkshake.
Do you know that he drinks the milkshake in that?
He drinks it up.
I
don't
drink
talk-
it up.
Fuck off.
No, I won't. Now they're fighting?
I drink your milkshake. Fuck off.
That would be
This is
good
my
if
milkshake.
Succession season 4. They're like, there's a new investor on the horizon.
Daniel
It's Daniel
Plainview.
Plainview. I'm an oil man.
Right.
God, remember when that was just
We got to
how we
pivot to
behaved.
technology. I like oil.
Streaming is the future.
Well, what about oil?
Yeah, my top 10 of that year is Zodiac, Blood, Men, Rat,
Yeah.
Sun, Clayton,
Mhm.
Knocked Up,
Yeah.
We Own the Night, Eastern Promises, and The Host.
I mean,
The Bong movie.
just an embarrassment of riches.
An embarrassment of riches. There are movies I adore that are outside the top 10, such as Paprika, the Satoshi Kon movie.
Mhm.
Jesse James, I think, is great.
James firmly in my 10.
Juno, I love.
I do too.
Lust, Caution, I love.
Yes.
Death Proof, 310 to Yuma. These are movies I really like.
Just fun.
You know,
Yeah.
Red
Solid.
Road,
Right.
Into the Wild,
Trans-
Ocean's 13.
Transformers is a masterpiece. The first Transformers is a
No,
masterpiece.
I'm
It's an
seeing here
American
that I have it
masterpiece.
between National Treasure Book of Secrets and Reign Over Me.
Right.
Down
So
in 48.
you have it at between 6 and 7.
But this is
It's
also
6.5.
a year of some big swings that miss, like Spider-Man 3,
Mm-hmm.
My Blueberry Nights, which is like the only one
Sure.
my movie that didn't work for me ever, pretty much.
Yeah.
The Golden Compass, God
Yeah.
bless you, Chris. But
Mhm.
that movie,
We love you,
swings
Chris.
and misses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a weird year.
It's a weird year, but it's a big year. It just feels like a good microcosm of everything that was happening in film. What other nominations do you give it?
Oh, Jesus. Sorry. Sunshine? Well, I don't give it an acting nomination.
Okay.
I don't know who I would give an acting nomination from this movie.
Yeah.
Because it's such an ensemble where, like, I think everyone's functioning so well, but,
Yes.
like, is there a standout you pick?
I don't know.
I mean, and it's a pretty loaded year. Like, Rose Byrne, she's not going to displace this
No.
5.
But then you do like director, screenplay, all the tech categories. I
Exactly.
assume.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
all over my text.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus. You want
Score.
that score.
That score.
Yeah, exactly. And the production design of this movie is incredible.
Yeah.
The sets are very
Visual
beautiful.
effects,
The visual effects
cinematography,
are incredible.
editing. Yeah. No, I love this movie.
But it is, as you say, a great year for movies.
Yeah, I just think it's Jesse James is a movie that was a little ignored in its moment, but yet still got 2 Oscar nominations, and I think now has grown the reputation it deserved at the time.
Yep.
Sunshine is the movie of 2007 that I think is still kind of simmering below the surface.
A little bit.
Less Caution,
Obviously,
the other
it's-
one. Those are the 2 films I feel like deserve to be talked about.
Norbit?
I should give Norbit another rewatch. I gotta say, after that Jack and Jill screening at Nighthawk, I'm like, am I wrong about every movie I've ever
No,
disliked?
Jack and Jill is good.
Jack and Jill's a masterpiece.
Norbit has some funny moments.
Yeah.
But Norbit is fundamentally lacks what Jack and Jill has, which is like the emotion of Norbit is fucking nonsense.
I remember Norbit feeling a little evil too.
Exactly. Like, and yeah,
It's Brian Robbins. There's this like weird cynical core.
yeah, like Norbit himself is not a real character.
No.
Like, you're just like, this guy sucks. Have you seen Norbit?
No.
Okay, fine. You want us to be
Rasputia?
done, huh?
Rasputia.
No, I've never seen
Ben. I'm
Norbit.
joking.
Yeah.
Ben's got to go to the dentist.
I do.
Yeah.
I got to get cleaned up.
I've heard of David after dentist, but Ben before dentist? The thing that I have heard of in the past
What on earth is he talking about?
is David
I'm not sure.
after dentist.
No, that's like a indie film or
It
something.
was a YouTube video where the kid is, they
Oh
give him
yeah,
the
the kid's like in the car and he's like,
anesthesia.
right.
Is it going to
That's
be
like
this
an
forever?
early viral video.
Right. So the
yes.
joke was that your name is David.
Yeah.
That video is called David After
Look,
Dentist.
I mean,
That's
on
one
paper, it's a good joke. And
time
yet,
frame. This
you
has
know,
been, in
and
fact,
yet it's just
we're now
another
dealing
stinker for the
with
pile.
that. Look, I'm the Icarus I. I tried to drop the payload. I went insane.
Oh boy,
I got crispy.
You have like a video where like David after it makes sense. David after dentist.
David
It's
after
the
dentist.
title of a video. One of the hosts is David, and they're like, "Why is his face scarred?"
I'm gonna win the Mark Twain Prize in Humor this year. This is it. This is my moment. This is one of those episodes that we just immediately decide the second we finally commit to doing Boyle. No fucking guest.
No.
Every once in a while, there's one like fucking Miami Vice
You
or
don't get
Hulk
to
or
come
whatever.
on this
Where we're like,
episode.
we have so much goddamn shit to say. Like Ben before dentist. How dare we cede mic time to anyone else?
Everyone go watch Sunshine. It's a great film.
Yeah.
Next week on Blank Check, Slumdog Millionaire, the film he won Best Picture for.
So
Mostly
bizarre.
as an apology for this film.
Yeah, kind of. But not even like.
No, people love Slumdog, but
Yeah.
but to me, I was like, wow, the guy made Sunshine.
Yeah,
give
no.
him his Oscar.
No, I feel like when Benjamin Button gets the Best Picture nomination the same year as Slumdog, that felt like it was an apology for ignoring Zodiac.
Oh, totally.
Whereas Sunshine, I think people were still like, what? When
Yeah,
when did he make that?
Yeah, well, he sure did.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't come out in this country practically. That's
No,
why.
it barely did. It's, got a limited release. Ben, any final thoughts?
Sun hot.
Hot.
Yeah.
Crispy.
Yeah.
You gonna
That's
keep it crispy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Laser accuracy. Remember him?
Who's that?
Pete Holmes.
He said laser
He
accuracy?
used to say it all the time.
I forgot that part of it. Keep it crispy, obviously, remember.
He would say that every week.
You know what Ram Dass used to say?
Oh my god! I just remember at the end of the episodes of those podcasts to be like, "Do you want to say keep it crispy?" And usually they'd be like, "Yeah," and then someone like Jesselnick is like, "No," and then he goes,
Right, that would always
You know,
be the moment.
like, he's
Where he'd be like, Liam Neeson, can you say keep it crispy? And
Keep it crispy.
of course you should be keeping it crispy.
he would always, Pete Holmes would just
Yeah, it's
cackle.
crazy cackling. Podcast, baby.
Podcast.
It's our industry.
Yep.
3 pod bros right here.
God, Marie sent me the fucking New York Times article,
So mad.
The
about
Dating
it.
Hazard of Pod Bros or something like that. What was the headline?
Yeah, it's something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. And I was just like, this is the last thing I need right now in my personal life. I don't need the New York
Too
Times.
bad, pod bro.
So I've decided to, and I did this in the text, and I just want to clearly announce it now to our listeners. I'm officially branding myself as a pod gentleman.
Ah, very good.
I am no pod bro. I'm a pod gentleman.
I'm
Thank you,
doffing
David.
a hat
He
to
doffs
you.
the cap to me, and I doff the cap right back to
Yes,
you.
right. Gilded Age over here.
Yeah. Tune in next week for Slumdog Millionaire.
Still on
Accidental
the
Best
air.
Picture
You
winner.
made it weird.
Of course. Who was the last person to make it weird at the time of this recording?
Joe.
Rogan.
No, Joe Low.
Joe Latrulio.
Oh,
who of
yeah.
course played Paul physically. Well, when they shot Paul.
Did he really?
He did. That poor guy had to be on set
He did the
pretending to be an
Sean Gunn
alien.
on
And they
his
were like, by the
knees?
way, Seth Rogen's voicing this alien.
Oh, God. Because he's in the movie as the...
Yeah, he gets to, yeah. Well,
Well, you know what? I'm sorry, folks. I'm getting breaking news here. Tune in next week for Paul?
nope.
Paul episode?
Nope.
Paul cast?
Nope.
Should we have Pete on the show?
Yeah.
I would happily have Pete. I used to really love
I
him.
mean, is it going to make it too weird? though?
No. I can't have it weird.
Is it going to make it too
won't.
weird?
I won't.
This is an aggressively normal show. Thank you all for listening to us talk about Sunshine, an episode we've been waiting 8 years to do. And it worked.
Yeah.
We saved the sun. Thank you to Marie Barty for
I
our
was
social
running
media.
out of
Dang, that's how it's going to end the episode.
Oh, fuck.
God damn it.
All right, well, do it again.
No, I'm not going to do it again. Thank you to Marie Barty for our social media and helping to produce this show. Thank you to Alex Barron and AJ McKeon for our editing and playing things 3 times in a row.
No.
Playing things 3 times in a row.
No.
Playing things 3 times in a row.
Playing things 3 times in a row.
Thank you to Joe Bowen and Pat Reynolds for our artwork. Thank you to Lane Montgomery and the Great American Owl for our theme song. JJ Birch for our research. You can go to blankcheckpod.com for links to some real nerdy shit, including our Patreon Blank Check special features where we do franchise commentaries. Right now, we're still in the Men in Black.
Probably. I don't know.
Men in Black International,
Yeah,
I think,
possibly.
coming up next.
Yeah, Men in Black 3 coming up next.
But a reminder that every 10 days we unlock another episode from 2020 on our Patreon, free to anyone. Patreon.com/blankcheck.
Yeah. Sure. All right, come on.
See,
We're done.
Toy Story commentary is coming up.
Sure, great.
Yeah,
Love
tune in
it.
next week for Slumdog Millionaire.
Yes.
And as always,
I was lying on the grass of Sunday morning of last week.
I know it's not for me. Still my sunshine.